Why don't we get started with the pledge?
Was that those?
Well, I got a couple of these.
Oh, they've gone around.
Takes
Okay.
back. I've got all these old names coming back to me.
Good evening. Good evening. We'll go right into the OPM update.
Okay, yeah. Good evening and
Happy New Year.
New Year to everybody, yeah. So we'll just give you a quick update of where we've been. We've been pretty busy over a couple of weeks before the holidays and since we all came back in the new year. We've been going back and forth with MSBA. We did execute that PFA, we sent it back to them. They had a couple of comments that bounced back and forth between the attorneys. They asked us for some more information on the vote that the town council took way back in August. So I got those meeting minutes and that vote language. I got the certified copies from Town Hall here and forwarded on to them, so we should get that back shortly. We've been working with our working group. We've had a series of meetings since we last met with the building committee. Two of the big ones on December 11th, we met with the police department and fire department to review the project. We reviewed the site plan. We reviewed the building, the layout. We went through a lot of the emergency procedures and the security systems and security procedures with those folks, and we're going to give you an update on that tonight. And then on January 8th, last week, we met with all the town regulatory departments. We met with the town planner, the highway department, the water and sewer, the building commissioners were there, the senior centre director was there. There was a number of people. There was about 20 people at that meeting last week, health departments. We met with them, went through the project with them. We got through a lot of work with them, and I'll talk a little bit about that meeting in a moment and what we have to do with those folks. And then RDA and their consultants, they continue with the design documents. I think you got a copy of the current design, all 220 pages or so, last week, and a link. So I'm not sure folks have had a chance to look at that, but I think tonight's presentation will summarise a lot of that and get into some of the specifics of what we've been doing over the last couple of months. Our schedule, so we're in design development. We're working through that. We have another couple tonight and then another couple of meetings on February 14th. We hope to send the DD documents to the estimators to start their estimates. It'll take them about 3 weeks to do the DD estimates, 2 weeks to estimate it, and then we'll come together. It'll take a week to reconcile that before we present that the DD estimates to you sometime in March, in mid-March, and then we have an MSBA submission date, March 13th, for the DD submission to MSBA. Gene and his team will continue right into the 60% design documents. That will bring us up to the beginning of June, with the 90% the end of the summer, and then we hope to bid the project in the early fall of next year and a bid and award November, December to get started in construction. So we're still on for those milestone dates. Upcoming meetings. So we're here tonight. We're going to look at the building updates. We're going to look at some interior materials, exterior elevations and materials, some security stuff we spoke about, and Gene has his MEP and fire protection team here, so we're going to present some of those from our working group meetings as well. We'll come back in 2 weeks. We'll have the building plans, the final updates we hope to send to the estimators. Also spoke about doing some sort of fly-through with a SketchUp software that we can bring you through the building, do some 3D imaging. We'll look at the site plan and layout at that point. After our meeting last week, the civil engineers and landscape architects are looking at parking, traffic, utilities, and stormwater. And we're also going to revisit the lead scorecard. We talked about that. That gives us 2 extra incentive points under the MSBA program. So we'll revisit that and make sure we're still on target to meet the requirements for the green credit from MSBA. And we'll be back February 10th to take a last look at the design before we send that to the estimators to start pricing the DD estimates and do our first cost check post the approval of the project. And back again on March 9th, we hope to have the reconciled estimates for you and vote to approve the project for submission to MSBA, the DD submission. Our project budget, we still haven't updated that. We're still waiting for the PFA from MSBA. So the budget is as was approved by the town, but I haven't updated that for any amounts paid to date. Until we have the PFA back from the town, we can't submit any pro-pay submissions to MSBA for reimbursement. So we still have the $386,000 that has been reimbursed for the feasibility schematic design phase. Once we get that PFA back, we can start submitting pro-pays for the design development and other design phases, and we'll get the reimbursement from that. So budget is as we were last month. And just so the permitting schedule, so coming out of our meeting last week, as I said, we met with all the town departments. We went through the required permits and submissions to the town with Jennifer from the planning department and some of the other folks who were at the meeting. So these are some of the permits that we know we'll need for the project. Mass Historic, we were required to submit that. We actually did that during the schematic phase. There's a project notification to Mass Historic to let them know that we planned on demolishing the existing building. They came back, they had no issues with this demolishing the building. It's of no historic significance, so we're okay with that. We did talk last week at the meeting whether we would have to go to the local historic commission. We were told that because the building is less than 75 years old, we didn't. So we'll just confirm that with the historic, but we believe that we don't have to go for formal demolition permit or any permissions to demolish the building with the local historic commission. We will need a demo permit from the building department. So once we're finished the DD, we'll start to look at the plans with them again. There is some coordination with Concom on that. There's a couple of parts of the building, just a small corner of the building in 2 places that are within the buffer zone, so we'll just have to look at that with Concom. They think just some erosion control should be fine, but we'll do that sometime April or May. We'll go to the building department for the formal permit, but we'll start talking to them well before we're looking for the formal permit in May to demolish the building. Site Plan Review and Conservation Commission. Again, we talked to Jennifer. We think the best time to go for that is after the 60% submission. That's kind of a milestone that will have most of the information that Concom and planning will require. After that point, we'll just be doing some of the detailing, but we'll have the site plan locked in, we'll have the building plan, we'll have the finishes locked in. So we'll submit that in conjunction with the 60% submission to MSBA. People who are familiar with the Dover Amendment, we're not required to go for full planning. Dover Amendment allows us to submit, but will only be reviewed on certain things. We'll review on the massing of the building, the height of the building, there's parking, circulation, there's 7 or 8 specific topics that we have to submit on, and that planning can have jurisdiction over. So we'll work again with planning and Concom to do that in June. We did commit that after we submit the DD documents, we will go back to them and just do an informal page turn. So we'll see where we are at the end of DD and before we submit to them with the 60% in June. There'll be a curb cut permit required by Highway Department. That's because we're making the entrance at South Street wider. I think we're going to go almost property line to property line, so we're going to widen that. So we will be required to do a permit with the highway, so we'll do that at the same time as we go to planning and Concom. Then the other permits will happen during construction, or when we come up to construction, the building permit, that will be the contractor will submit to that, or submit for that when it's time to start construction. We will, however, be committed to each time we have a submission, the 60% sorry, D 60% and 90%, we will go to the planning department and give them an opportunity to look at the plan so they know what we're doing well before we actually go to submit for the full construction permit in December 20. SWPPP, that's a stormwater plan that we have to submit. We'll do that with the general contractor in December, and then any street notes are tapping in for a new water service will be required to submit, or the contractor will be required to submit for street opening permits for that. After that, we'll work with the local jurisdiction during construction, and that will culminate in the final inspections of June of 2022. The health board has jurisdiction over the kitchen. They'll come and inspect the kitchen before we get that inspection. Elevator inspection is a state inspection that the contractor will coordinate with the state inspectors. And then the occupancy permit would be the final permit by the fire department, electrical and plumbing department, and finally the building inspector will issue a occupancy permit. So those are the permits that we know we need. We'll check back in. We're going to check with any state departments that we may need to. There's none that we know at the moment. We did talk about going to Mass DOT, about the going out onto Route 18. We don't think we require that. We're going to stay back from the setbacks. We just have to check what that setback actually is, whether it's a 10-foot or a 70-foot setback from Route 18. But we don't plan on disturbing anything within the state easement or setback to bring us out to Route 18. So that is our update. Any questions?
Shane, for these permits, specifically the curb cut permit, if we're going property line to property line, when are the abutters notified? And will they be notified?
As part of the site plan and the Concom one, I can't remember. Concom, I believe, requires us to notify everybody within 100, and planning is 300 feet.
Okay.
So we'll send letters out to all of those abutters. And when we come to those meetings, we bring the registered mail, we bring the little green slips with us to show that we've done that. So that will go out probably late April or May.
Okay. Thank you.
Jane, coming out of the meeting with the department heads, is there anything that is of concern or challenge or would change anything that any of you are planning or thinking to date?
We don't believe so. We went through everything. The town has a new Concom agent. We had reviewed the plan previously with the town engineer. He's still here as the town engineer, but I think they brought up in a new Concom agent. So it was his first time looking at it. So we may have to dive into a bit more detail with him, but there was nothing came up that was any concern.
There was a couple small things. We handed the fire chief, the deputy chief, the site plan because he wanted to review where hydrants were going to go, and he's going to get back to us on that. The other thing was at the water and sewer department, we pointed out that we're going to be reusing part of the existing sewage line, kind of from the school side of the stream out towards the senior center. We were not planning on replacing that. And it's not resolved yet, but the discussion was, and it makes sense, it's just a question of when to do it. They suggested that we clean the line and then send a video camera down the line to see if there's any damage. And so the choice is, do we spend the money now and do it, or do we'll kind of wrap it into the contract and have the contractor do it at the beginning? And if anything comes up, we change it at that point by a change order. So I think, Jeff, unless there was any other things, the town departments they were very happy, right, to have the opportunity to be updated on the project. And as Shane said, when we finish that 60% CDs, we will go through actually with full-size set and actually turn the pages and have everyone have a good gander at it. Anything else, Jeff?
No, I think that what Shane said,
hitting milestones, making the town more familiar with the project instead of seeing it at the end in the application of a permit.
How much, what's the length of sewage pipe that you'd be examining roughly, you know?
John, do you have any idea? John's handling kind of coordinating our site. Obviously, we'd like not to replace it if we don't have to.
Right.
So when do you think you'll make the decision of whether to do it ahead of construction, ahead of bidding, or?
Yeah, I think it makes sense to do it ahead of bidding. It's not a big cost item, and I'd rather know it ahead of time so we can, you know, make arrangements if we need to do any replacement. If we wait till bidding and we find out something, at that point, we have a contractor on board and it's a change order, could be expensive, so if we do it up ahead of time, it's probably, you know, a few days, a week tops for a company to come in and just clean it out and camera it.
We'll get on that then. I know Jeff, the same day we had permitting meetings, or that big permitting meeting, Jeff was over at the school with the kitchen folks and a couple other groups. Any big things come out of that, Jeff?
We met with the food service director, I think it was Eric DeSalle. Is he a director or is he?
He's the director.
Okay.
His name's
and-
Delisle. Eric Delisle.
A lot.
No S. Don't say the S.
Did I not say it right? I apologize.
It's okay.
I met with theatrical, met with cable TV, and Lisa White. Excuse me?
Downstairs. Thank you.
And that was the big item in there that I would say that the intent was that we weren't designing a theatrical type stage for a town meeting. We were designing for a pre-K through 2. And so there's a level of dimming. House lights is designed for, you know, the school sing-alongs and events that the school would have. Could be PTA at night with a movie night next door for the children from a PTA meeting. But those were the type of design comments that were there.
It's not High School Musical?
High school, no, it was not. It was discussed, and I think the school administration said that we have a high school for that. And then the other item was, and it ties into security, but it was door hardware and the functions of items like classroom hardware, passage sets with communicating doors between classrooms, and that I can go into more detail, but I was now, or I could do that during my
Why don't you
PowerPoint.
have a do junior presentation?
Yes. Mhm. Those were the major items that we hit upon there.
Any questions so far? Sure.
Just coming in late to this, and I apologize for it. So, attempt for lead or lead design, conservation, anything, what was the decision about whether we're moving in that direction or not?
So we're going to be LEED certified at the minimum. I think we're actually tracking on LEED silver under the MSBA agreement with the district. We'll get 2 additional reimbursement points if we're 20% above the base energy code, and if we get LEED certified. So we're targeting those, and we expect to do that easily. Yeah.
All right.
Is that it?
So I think we have a series of three slideshows. One by the HVAC, which is, you know, the air conditioning, ventilation, heating engineer. One by the electrical engineer, and that'll cover electrical and lighting and security. And then Jeff has one covering kind of architectural stuff. And what we were hoping to do was just start with the two consultants that are here, answer questions, and then kind of let them go so they don't have to sit through ours. Is that okay?
Sure.
Great. You want to start with Dom's? Yeah. Is that it? So Dom's been here before, but Dom Punello from Garcia Galeska de Souza, and he's the project's mechanical engineer. So I guess. I think it's under view. So, slideshow, what the heck? Did you go to home? Go to home. Slideshow, 1, 2, tabs over. Oh, yeah, there you go. God bless. There you go. So Dom, I don't know if you remember, but sure. During the feasibility study, Dom had come in and said, there's a variety of different systems, and here's kind of the life cycle costs and the payback, and the committee endorsed the system that Dom's been designing into the school right now, which is what, displacement?
Yeah, so largely a full air conditioning displacement ventilation system. As Gene mentioned, we did the life cycle analysis, and that was the kind of recommendation and direction, recommendation from us and direction by the committee to pursue this HVAC design. It's a very energy efficient system, but it's also very cost effective. In terms of the plant, it's driven by a high efficiency gas-fired hot water heating system. And then there's not a central cooling plant, but we're using high efficient package rooftop units for the majority of cooling, with some areas, largely the administration areas, which have a VRF, variable refrigerant flow system as well. There was certainly a focus also on maintenance costs that was factored into the life cycle. So this has a relatively low maintenance cost because it's central systems with central air handling units and central plants rather than a lot of terminal units.
Terminal units are like in the old Mitchell School. I don't know if you remember, but each classroom had what they call the classroom unit ventilator. So each classroom had controls and motors and all sorts of stuff. So obviously what Don's talking about is trying to centralize things and get fewer units for maintenance.
So within the classroom spaces, we would have, it doesn't necessarily have to be this configuration of diffuser, but we would have a displacement diffuser which distributes air at a low level, and then the air is exhausted at a high level. So rather than trying to mix the entire room volume, we're displacing the airflow. So that the other benefit to there is pollutant removal, low noise, helps with the learning environment, high indoor air quality, and low noise because it's at a lower velocity. So it's a great system for classrooms.
Real quick question on that.
Sure.
How large are those units on the wall? I'm just thinking this is going to be an educational piece for our teachers, but they can't block those.
Correct.
So how much space are we talking? As wide as this desk? Are we talking double it? Just to get an idea.
They're typically on the order of 24 by 48, and 2 of them would be required.
Okay. Thank you.
And we are working with the architect to locate those strategically.
Okay.
It will also be a VAV, variable air volume system, so we're going to vary the amount of airflow based upon the space temperature requirements and also the CO2 levels within the room. So as rooms become more occupied, we need to provide more ventilation air to the spaces. So that was part of the design. As I mentioned, another benefit of that whole displacement action is it allows for a cooling load reduction. Because we're not trying to mix the entire room volume, we're able to apply discounted load factors for anything from people, lights, equipment to envelope solar gains. It's led to, like, I'll get into this next one about the lead. We've got a chart for that. And then all of these systems, the displacement, rooftop units, packaged rooftop units, and the central heating plant will be controlled through a building management, energy management system, automatic temperature control system.
Every classroom have its own thermostat?
Every classroom will have its own thermostat that controls that VAV box, and that's a good point too. I want to mention the other reason for the primary reason for the hot water heating plant is that it's a very efficient means to provide night setback heating. When we're not occupied, we still have to heat the building, so we're using hot water radiation heating, radiant panel heating for heating. That'll also be in the perimeter heating for each space. So each,
Do you have a sense for occupancy? Or is it just a night setback?
we will have the, so there'll be, we can add that, but that's also caused some issues in some projects, because if someone comes back too soon, leaves, and then comes back, so we can plan that, but we would recommend doing a different temperature set point, not going to the full unoccupied. For instance, if we go to 60 degrees for night setback, we wouldn't recommend going to that same setback for occupied, unoccupied within a room or zone. Might go to say 65 or 68 if our set point is 70, but that can't all be programmed.
So Dom, an example of that is if the kids are in the classroom and they go for lunch, so the classroom is empty, it'll turn off or go to unoccupied. You don't want it to go too low because when the kids come back from lunch, it'll take a long time to heat up again.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you normally do in a school like this.
We've been,
I was
to be
thinking-
honest, we've been getting away from that. We did program that into some areas, but we've been getting away from that because of those complaints. That it takes another 10 minutes to get to set point.
Right.
Does the CO2 monitor factor into that, if at all? Maybe not.
It would, you would get some setback savings on the ventilation. When people leave, CO2 levels will drop, and then the VAV box will close. It's just two different set points, one looking at CO2 and the other strictly at temperature. So there is some savings just by having the CO2.
So a normal school day, whatever the start of day is or period ahead of it to get the classroom cool or warm, it goes into that mode based on the set point of the classroom thermostat, but it will stay in that mode until the end of the school day or whatever time frame you pick, and then it goes to night setback?
Correct. That'd be the normal operation.
So maybe the occupancy sensing, if you did it, I'm not suggesting, I'm just asking, would be for like that shoulder or that time period from when you know you're never using the school after 10 p.m., but maybe if you have extended where only selected classrooms are used, that might help. But, okay, thank you.
And one of the things we do with, and that's certainly something that could be developed if we could work with facilities and develop a strategy. Even if we didn't have it, what we do own is some custom programming. So that's like a perfect example of a custom program that could be implemented.
Would occupancy be through the lighting control system or? directly?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, so we're not adding another sensor. We're using that and integrating through BACnet mapping.
All right.
So in order to provide that flexibility, you don't have to change what you're doing right now.
No, it would be kind of a tweak to our control sequences. So this is just a map of the different, while I said everything is displacement, there are a couple of other areas, the gym and CAF, which are not displacement, they're overhead. Initially at schematic design, we looked at possibly doing those with displacement, but through working with the architect and facilities, we think overhead's a better distribution system, largely because of, it takes quite a amount of area, as you mentioned, to locate the low diffusers. And also, we thought there, with younger kids, increased likelihood to maybe kick or potentially damage the low diffusers in areas such as a gym and CAF. So those are overhead. We did look at the updated energy model, and it had maybe like a 1.5% impact on the energy model, but we're still well within the requirements for the MSBA savings. So this is just what this is showing. Overhead, still variable air volume distribution just coming from overhead, whereas the classrooms and the corridors are displacement ventilation, and the VRF within the administration areas, and the media, right? And the media center. And the reason for that is to give a little additional humidity control for those spaces. And then we've got displacement throughout. And then we've got VRF. The VRF also will have a package rooftop unit that handles its ventilation. So it also is a highly efficient design. Why we don't go displacement in, say, the admin and media center are primarily numbers driven by the ventilation load. The classroom has quite a significant population, so code requires us to provide a good amount of ventilation air. We're then using that ventilation air to provide cooling. In spaces such as the administration media center, populations are reduced, so our ventilation load is actually reduced, so we don't have as much airflow to provide the required cooling. So we need supplemental cooling, and that's what the VRF system does. So while I said there's, a little amount of terminal units, there would be the terminal units there, which are those variable refrigerant, essentially mini splits, but these would be not wall mounted, they would be within a ceiling. And just to update on the energy model, this was a similar chart was shown for the schematic design life cycle analysis, where we were looking at other options. What we did here, we ran the energy model again with those changes to the overhead, gym and CAF, and per the LEED version 4 baseline, which is ASHRAE 90.1 2010. The building and its HVAC system are 33.9% better than code. As Shane mentioned, MSBA requires a minimum of 20% versus current code, which is 90.1 2013, and if they change it, it might go to 2016. What we're finding in current models is there might be a reduction of up to 7%. So even with that, we're well above the 20% versus current code.
So there's a couple reasons that, first of all, this is the system that was priced out in schematic design. It's further developed now, and it'll go to the estimators with our DD package. But there's a couple reasons, just to reiterate, this system made a lot of sense. One was because it's efficient, but because the air is going in low,
and you're exhausting high, it's flushing out those rooms. So the air quality in this is the best of the air quality, the various systems. So that impacts learning, right? And then the second is because the building's air-conditioned or in the swing seasons at least dehumidified, that also impacts learning really well. Because when kids or staff are hot and uncomfortable, obviously they're not thinking about what they're learning. They're kind of just miserable.
One other point was a main driver too, from what I recall during SD, is the low maintenance. Another low maintenance aspect is within all the classrooms, not having terminal units, not only do you not have filter changes, you don't have condensate drain maintenance. So there's no condensate drains associated with fan coils or even the VRF units, they do have them, but, so, we're not spreading them throughout, but anything like that would require additional maintenance.
So hopefully you're not going to say switch systems. But,
Oh, we have to wait till the budget comes in.
So is there, what other schools have you done this in? Is there any close by that, we could Bob go talk to their facilities guys, or, have folks go and?
Yeah, we could provide a list of,
we went to a couple, when we started the design, we were down in Fairhaven, and I can't remember if New Bedford, did you do the Jacobs?
Lincoln.
No, it's Hannigan.
Oh, Hannigan, which
Hannigan, which turned.
we didn't do, but
Okay.
was a displacement system.
Situate.
There's Situate, it's available. Fairhaven was just dehumidification, wasn't full air conditioning. We kind of stopped at code required numbers, not giving additional airflow needed for the full air conditioning, but Situate is kind of a full air conditioning displacement system.
But even being there in July, walking that building, you would never know that you didn't go
To which one?
the one in Fairhaven.
Fairhaven, yeah.
Yeah, we even made note of that in the classrooms.
Yeah.
It's very comfortable in that building when we walked it in the middle of the summer.
The other thing too, I think we had this kind of discussion, and do you go to full, or the difference is some airflow. That's really the difference between the partial air condition that we say with displacement and then the full air conditioning displacement is turns out to be probably a couple hundred CFM per classroom. That's the difference to get from the 78 degrees down to the 75. So even if you have the full air conditioning system and you find that, hey, 78, you know what, it's still comfortable, that's still another control tweak you can make to get some additional energy savings. You'd still have the full air conditioning, assuming budget and the numbers come in, and we still stay with this system as a full air conditioning system, but that's always something that can be done down the line for additional energy savings. Just adjust those set points, those VAV boxes don't open up as much, the rooftop units don't work as hard, and you could still get additional energy savings.
I wanted to ask Bob if there's anything he sees or hears that is going to be a challenge for the in-house maintenance or capability of what we do, or require service contracts that you weren't planning on, or anything like that?
No, I don't see any challenges. We kind of have some of these systems throughout our schools already. The VRF would be the introduction of a new system to our district. I have experience with VRF, and it's pretty reliable systems as well. I think as a consistent approach, I think what we want to do is continue our PM contracts that we do throughout the other buildings and add this onto this building as well once we accept. So I don't really see any changes. The only one thing that I would ask, and if we would consider, seeing as that we're going to be going towards a very efficient building, is do we adopt set points? Maybe start with this building, potentially carry it over to other buildings where that we can see energy savings. It would be an agreed set point with that we could essentially just kind of lock in throughout all the buildings, because right now we just kind of have a parameter of set points and adjust as needed to certain areas being warmer or colder, but it could be a potential energy savings throughout the entire district itself. So considering the design of this building, obviously we're not going to be setting air conditioning temperatures for 68 degrees and things like that. So this may be a step we decide to go forward with. Just a thought.
So would that be something that would tie into the owner's project requirements that needs to be developed for the commissioning?
Yeah.
The way you're going to operate the building?
Yeah, the current design for the air conditioning is 75, plus minus 2 degrees. That's what we call for adjustable set points. But to Bob's point, that can always be changed by users in the future. And then for heating is 70 degrees plus minus 2 as well. So those are, and then we also want that like a little dead band in between the two.
So when you say that, like, each classroom thermostat can adjust, it sounds like within 4 degrees? Is that?
Well, yes.
Essentially,
Yep,
Yeah.
down 2, up 2.
Yeah, 2 down. Okay.
Now, on a 90-degree day, I will say we're not going to necessarily be able to get 73 degrees on a 90-degree day. We'll get that 75 degrees on the design day.
Correct. So that's kind of touching on the point of when people think air conditioning, they'll think we'll be able to drive this thing down to 68 degrees. We have to make sure that that gets conveyed with the education piece
Right,
of it as well. Yeah,
that's what we did go over that, the training.
realistic, because I'll be getting the calls.
Well, but still, it's dehumidified air. So they're gonna be a lot more comfortable.
It'd be better than the air conditioning you have now, right?
Absolutely.
On the overhead AC areas, like the gym and the auditorium, the cafetorium, those are the spaces that are planned to be used after hours for, public events, community events. How would those spaces be able to be controlled? How easy is it to be able to set those up for different functions, different times of the week, or even the weekend?
I think it'll be fairly easy because the design has them, each has their own individual air handling unit zone. So those 3 spaces each have their own air handling unit. So it would be, and then they will still be tied into the central building management system. So it would just, require access there. The other thing we have done and would likely do on those spaces would put like a push button override on one of the thermostats. So if it wasn't planned ahead of time, but someone did come, they can take it out of the standby mode and drive it into occupied. Might just take a little bit more time, but the thermostat, could have push button override, and we typically do for those large spaces.
Or, since it's a web-enabled system,
And it could,
we could call the superintendent and say, hey, this Jim. Say, hold on.
it will be web accessible.
Yeah,
So you can do things remotely?
absolutely.
Yes.
Having that button, though, is where I was going, that override for the usual activities, that's probably a scenario you can program, right?
And it goes
For like
back.
2 hour
to the,
override.
Basketball tonight, You were talking about having a local override, right, Dom?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, on the
yeah.
Thursday.
yeah. I
So
think that
typically
feature
it's
would be
2
good.
hours, yeah.
Right. So then anybody who knows who's authorized to do it, could do it without.
Yeah, where that comes a little tricky is when it's, 0 degrees out, and you want to go from the 60-degree setback to 70, 72 degrees.
Well, hopefully, like you said, if each individual unit or whatever could have its own occupancy schedule, with that we could create those
Absolutely,
schedules
we'll have that
and follow.
capability.
Yep, that'll, should solve the problem there altogether.
So the target energy savings over the baseline, you think you have it covered for the new code, is what you were saying, right?
Correct.
What about the, and maybe this is for the electrical section, but what about the enhanced metering that's required? Has that been factored in?
For the lead point, can you come up there? Sure. There's a microphone there. Specifically for enhanced metering, right now on the project, we'll have metering the main, we're metering lighting, we're metering mechanical loads, so there's all loads over a certain percentage, so we're gearing it around the lead point at this point. So yes, there will be an enhanced metering.
Okay.
Is there anything, Derek, besides the gym and the cafetorium that the public might come in and use? Like those music classrooms or, I don't think you can have people upstairs, right?
That's why kind of we separated those spaces that would be kind of used for more of the public or down on that ground level. That's why I put all those larger spaces, cafetorium, gymnasium, those music rooms. I really don't foresee, Dennis, anything that you would allow on the main level or the top level of the building.
At night?
No.
Just base until the end of the day,
Yeah.
maybe, but.
You guys open up your kitchen for pancake breakfasts or anything like that?
Good, no, but no, I mean, nothing, not to mean to the public itself. Use our kitchens, no, I don't remember us, Chartwell's ever, it's like breakfast with Santa type things, but those are not, those are kind of like pre-made type meals. I don't foresee any of that. The only thing I could say is maybe if that one room that may be used for steam stem activities with the roof deck, if you ever did something in that space, but other than that, I can't think of any reason to be up on those main and top level.
And we have a process for people to request the
Yep.
space, so it's not, those one-offs, oh, we need to get into the building immediately are few and far between. I mean, people request put in building request forms.
Yeah. And the majority of the requests are usually for areas like, larger areas like cafetoriums and gymnasiums and things along those lines. Very rarely do they ask for a classroom. It might be Boy Scouts or Cub Scouts might need it once in a while, but for the most part, it's larger spaces.
So it sounds like if we put override buttons in the gym, cafetorium, and those two music classrooms, or just the gym and cafetorium?
I'm going to defer to my
Yeah,
director of facilities who just looked at me like this.
So the more overrides we put in, the more potential for losing efficiency and costs and things like that. So in my opinion, I would say, depending on when we're building the controls portion of it or the programming, we essentially break out these sections of the building and design them with the capability of programming these timeframes in with temps and setbacks and all that kind of stuff. So that's the way I would rather see it go. That way, once we receive our building usage form, timeframes this, we can go in there, program it, and heat the building, cool it, and then eventually it shuts off. Because you put in overrides, these things are just going to be running all the time. So.
So no overrides, which is fine, but that's.
Just prove.
Sure. Question. So maybe the school district. So with any of the kids that might have medical special needs, are there any that there might be one exception in 1 year in one cohort of a grade level that there's one kid that needs a constant room temperature like a 71, that wouldn't hit the 75? I mean, if we're getting in a hot day, that you have one classroom that you can definitely override one because of this one child or couple. So I don't know, is that an exception? Is that a one-off? Is that something that needs to be taken into consideration?
We do have some students on 504 plans or even IEPs that have some temperature issues with temperature, whether it get too low or too high. And then we do have plans in place at other sites to accommodate those students. So that might be something that we definitely have to think about in that site too, because we are going to house our preschool, obviously, which is an integrated special ed program, and some separate programs as well. So we usually have a good handle on that. Of those students that are coming to us, it's usually the move-ins that are difficult to gauge, but a lot of times these students are actually have come up through our preschool program, so we kind of have a handle on that prior to, so we can make those adjustments. It's the student that kind of is the move-in that has that situation that we may have to kind of get creative with.
So Dominic, to answer that question there, on a design day, let's say we're at 90-degree day. I mean, where are we going to be able to make those adjustments for one room to drive down temp that far?
Likely no. It'd be like,
That's the question, yeah.
yeah, so when I said 90, it's actually, I think, code is 88 degrees outside, you know, at 73-degree wet bulb, the corresponding humidity. That's a design day. We designed for 75. You likely will not be able to get to 71 degrees on those days. However, I'm not sure if that's a requirement, the 71. From past experience, we've done sped rooms and they've been designed for 75 typically. Often what's done on, you know, if it's needs to go below that is like a VRF unit or split system. But that's very difficult unless you knew exactly where that classroom was going to be.
We've had that situation a couple times recently, and it's been a student that can't have cold temperature.
Okay.
The classroom has had to have been, and it's not a student that has any special IEP or anything. And then we've had them that can't have hot. And they've put a portable AC unit, because we're in the old high school, right? But we've had a few cases off and on recently, so.
Do you know of the exact, is that an exact temperature, the 71 that anyone's familiar
I
with?
have no, I really don't know, because they
Okay.
haven't been with me, but there's been like, you know, can't be below certain temperature.
Yeah. The ones I'm familiar with is like the 70 to 75 ranges.
Yeah, I don't know, but I know there's been.
But if it's certainly, if there's something that gets relayed to us, we could certainly, and like
No.
Just an odd.
if it was a specific room, if we knew a specific room and we knew it had to go down, that, we could make some design revisions.
Okay.
You know, or, you know, say we designed everything and didn't make those revisions, there might be some balancing you could do.
Yep.
You know, and just try to move some additional airflow to those spaces. But it's always better to know ahead of time.
But I think right now with that system too, it's almost you're taking that humidity out of the building
It's
as
a little
well.
different,
along with-
right.
It's a little bit different than we currently
Great
are, where
point.
it's a building that does not have that ventilation system. So yeah, you have to put the wall unit in, where you have a culmination of that dehumidifying action in the cool. It's gonna keep that
Right,
environment
you're bringing out all
cool
the
enough that-
moisture. So that's like the whole point on the non-air conditioned buildings we've done. It's 78, but people would not think it's 78 because it's dry.
Correct, so.
But if, you'd probably be out of compliance because you just read 78. You know, if there was a statute that said it has to be 75.
Yeah, I would have to look at some of the plans, but I don't know if they put specific
I don't think so,
numbers in. But, you know, we,
I don't think those walls, those little ones we use now, I don't think we get anywhere near 70.
yeah.
But when a room's 98 and you go in a room that's
Like,
78.
what we have done on some projects that are like the Fairhaven, where they're just the partial air conditioning, for some sped classrooms, or we've treated just like we're proposing to treat here, just provide additional airflow to get to that 75 degrees.
So it wouldn't be of value to create one classroom with a VF unit at each level?
That's what we're kind of having a little bit of a sidebar here, that maybe that's something we could discuss at some point.
Yeah, why don't you determine what your need is and convey it to them, if anything, so that they can build it in, right?
Yep.
And then we obviously budget it out and take it from there, but I feel like if we do one classroom for each grade level, then we're covering that.
Unless that student goes out for art or, you know, cafeteria.
Well, I mean, that's going to happen, you know,
Yeah.
regardless. yeah.
Well, yeah, that's all, yeah.
Again, I kind of get back to it's a little bit different of an environment when you take that humidity out of the air than the high school that, was built quite a few years ago, and now it's, got that humid air in it on top of.
100 degrees. in the spring.
Yeah, the other option might be like, if we know there's a VRF system here, and there is a classroom here, another VRF unit could be added to a classroom, and whether it's operated or not. And we'd have, possibly near the admin area where we're already planning VRF. And that would bring the cost of that down, rather than now you're
Had a
adding
lot
a
of
whole.
experience with it, but with the few I have, most of the time the parents just say, is there air conditioning? Or there has to be air conditioning. They don't usually say a set
No,
temperature or a set number. So I think if we explain this to them about the humidity and all that, I think they would be fine, to be honest with you.
No, it certainly is considered an air conditioning building. The displacement is just the distribution system. We're getting air conditioning levels.
So will you think that through and just let us know if you need
Sure.
us to change
Yep.
anything?
Yep. Will we be having any working meetings with Dom at all, moving forward?
What's that?
Would Dom, would he come to any of our working meetings, or we just, do we have anything planned like that? Or mechanicals or anything along those lines, Shane?
Well, yeah, I think once we
The
get
day we were at
into
security,
controls
he
and
was
stuff.
meeting,
Yeah.
in the other room, but I'm sure he'd come back whenever
Okay.
you guys need him. You're welcome, Don.
Thanks, Dom.
Anytime. Anytime. That's what we're here for.
So we're planning on putting all the equipment on the roof, right? Nothing on the ground? All rooftop
Correct.
units, the condensers?
Condensers,
They want to be big monsters like these.
with little school buses.
Any questions for HVAC? All right, thank you.
We don't.
Thanks, Don. I'll slide into Don's hot seat.
No. That school in Fairhaven, it was a fairly warm day. It wasn't overly cold. It was very comfortable in that building. In Fairhaven.
Oh, Fairhaven. They just,
Good afternoon. You want me to just get going into the?
Sure. This is David Pereira. So he's Dom's partner, but David deals with electric and security and data communications, kind of all sorts of things.
So we're gonna kind of look at big picture systems for electrical distribution, generator lighting. We'll touch on security, those sort of things. So we'll start off with the power distribution system. Essentially, your service is going to be rated for 2,000 amps at 40 volt 3-phase. And in your main electric room, it'll be switchboard construction. We're going to oversize the bus to 2,500 amps to accommodate future PV that could be on the roof. You'll have, we talked about meters earlier, so that's a meter for the main with a KYZ output to the building management system. But in addition to that, there's a baseline for ASHRAE that you have to meet for sub-metering. And then to get the lead point, there's additional sub-meters that will all get tied back to the building management system to monitor specific loads. So we'll be tracking that in the lead scorecard and obviously looking at that from a cost standpoint. Then from the main switchboard out to the remote closets, we have multiple electric rooms in A wing, B wing, and C wing that'll house power panels that will be dedicated for branch circuitry for power receptacles. We'll have lighting panels that will be dedicated for lighting loads, and then we'll have mechanical panels that will be dedicated for mechanical loads. In addition to those, we'll also have an emergency distribution system, which will have, emergency lighting, emergency power, and emergency mechanical loads. Those will all be enclosed in individual electric rooms, so you won't have panel boards out for public access. The two different voltages in the building will be 277, 480, which will serve your large equipment and lighting loads. Then we'll step down using what's called a K13 transformer, or it's a transformer. We'll step that down to 12208, which will be for smaller loads, branch circuit receptacles, computers, things of that nature. I think that's, in general, that's the power distribution. One other thing is that we'll be proposing a centralized UPS that will back up a technology equipment panel for your data closets, so that any receptacle in your data closets that you plug in will be on the UPS for that 10-second transfer over to emergency power. So those critical systems, network, security, building management should not see any outage. They won't know that there was one. Lighting system. So every space essentially is going to have occupancy sensors, dual technology type, and daylighting sensors within the daylight zone throughout the building. So we're going to be harvesting natural light wherever we can to dim down the outer row of fixtures to conserve energy. 100% LED lighting throughout the building, and this dimming technology has come a long way from, you may have some other schools that might have tried to do it with fluorescents, which you really see the difference when the fluorescent lamp is dimming down. But now it's a much smoother process. It's not as noticeable to the end user, and you get the energy savings. So that'll be designed throughout the building. And what controls that is a lighting control system. So what we call is an automated lighting control system throughout the building. It's addressable, so we're going to have modules throughout. We base it on one system. Enlight is one of the equals. What happens is there's modules that control every LED is dimmable. So we have modules that control on, off, and dim for all fixtures, and all your controls are going to be low voltage on the wall as you walk into a room. You'll have that's a typical control that you would see, minus the little sensor, but on, off, up, down with a couple of scenes that you can control. We'll try to keep the controls as simple as we can, but effective. AV, full on, full off, and then when you're in any of those modes, a dim down, so you can adjust the light level. You can never adjust the light level higher than the daylight dimming. That's going to be your set point for that piece of it. And that's for energy savings. So the lighting control systems throughout the building, that has a BACnet interface that will speak to the building management system, so they can see each individual occupancy sensor. And if we so choose to tweak the program that way, it's designed into the system to be able to take the occupancy sensors into that to control other systems such as HVAC. Part of the lighting design, and we're shooting for a 0.4 to 0.5 light power density throughout the building. And 0.4 is on the aggressive end, and what we do is we'll model the classrooms. We'll work with the architect to use 90% reflected ceiling surfaces and lighter colors to make sure that we can meet this really low watts per square foot, which is essentially how many watts in a room that you can get it down to provide the level of light that's required, which is typically 30-foot candles in a classroom. So we'll provide calculations to get that light power density as low as possible. And that's typically around 40% better than code. So that gets plugged into the energy model, and it helps with the overall energy reduction of the system. I think we talked about addressable groups. So a little bit on the addressable group. So we can save on branch circuit wiring because we're using low voltage controls. For an example, you don't have to wire lights together for different zones. We control them through the modules, so you can have a master button that you can say, all right, this master button can control all these modules. You can essentially, program it any way you want. There'll be a graphic, and you want that switch to control if you want to make some tweaks and changes. And it doesn't require additional wiring throughout the building if you want to change some zones, for example.
David, you're not
Yes.
talking about individually addressable fixtures, are you?
So we're not talking about like a dolly system, but it's similar. we're either using a room controller if it's the end light, or we're using individual modules if our basis of design is in Celium, if you're familiar with that product. So we're using individual modules. So the module is inexpensive as compared to a built-in dolly ballast, and it doesn't preclude you from certain fixtures, because it's essentially a layer on top of the fixtures. So you're not specifying that intelligent ballast with the fixture.
So, but those are two different systems, right? The room controller would be all the lights controlled in the room, whereas the module you're talking about would be for each individual fixture?
Yes, but the room controller will have multiple zones within it. So if there's 6 fixtures in a room, it'll be 6 outputs from that room controller for the switch legs. We'll design it for the switch legs in the room. So in a typical classroom, you'll have, let's say, 6 fixtures, teaching wall, and then the other 2. So A, B, and C. So we'll have 1, 2, 3 modules that control those rows. So you have the flexibility to make those 3 rows do what you want from that one switch. And then if you want to master all of those on at a master switch in the front of the school, we wouldn't do that because you have occupancy sensors in there, but you could do that as well. You control each one of those modules. So depending on the control in the room, we put modules. So it's not individual per fixture, is what you're asking. It's per switch leg.
The room controller is, but you're confusing me on the module.
So 2 different manufacturers do it 2 different ways. So Enlight will have a room controller with, say, 6 outputs out of it. We'll take those 3 outputs to do the 3 rows. Celium uses a module that gets mounted to a box, right? Not a room controller. So that little module, there'll be 3 of those modules in the room.
Okay, so they're not on each individual fixture?
Not on each individual
Okay,
fixture.
I misunderstood.
Yes.
I get it.
Does that make sense, Sean, or is it too complicated?
Yeah. I'm not in favor of the individually addressable light fixtures, so that's why I didn't know if you were going there or not.
No,
It may make sense for this building, but
it prices itself out, and then in the public bidding sector, certain ballasts go with certain fixtures, and
that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, it becomes very difficult to spec it that way.
Yeah.
So that's why I like the lighting control system as a layer on top. So now you get the best price for the lighting fixtures with 3 equals, and then the control layer on top of that, you can get the best price, 3 different control systems that meet the spec. So
yeah, that sounds good.
yeah, and then you dial back the number of modules because you're doing it per switch leg. It's unnecessary really to go to every individual fixture. It's based on the control.
Sorry. Sorry, do you mind if I ask about the occupancy sensor? I think I talked about this like last year when this came out. Well, is the occupancy sensor based on movement, right?
It's movement, yes.
Okay, so, and I know that this comes up with teachers, if they're just sitting at their desk by themselves at 6 o'clock at night, it just shuts off on them?
Yeah,
Will they have the ability to, will they have like the 2-hour override that he was talking about for the heat for an occupant sensor so that it won't shut off just because they're not moving? Parent-teacher conferences, it happens a lot too. You'll be sitting there talking. And,
So embarrassing.
yeah. So I don't know if there's a way that they can change the way it's sent, if they can just override it for 2 hours, or is that something that module you're talking about can override on parent-teacher conference night?
So you can't override the occupancy sensor because the occupancy sensor is there to conserve energy based on the energy code, right?
Yeah.
They're dual technology occupancy sensors, so there's multiple, motion sensing technologies that happen, one's more sensitive than the other. So what happens is you need 2 to turn it on and only 1 technology to keep it on. And when it turns on, there's a programmed delay. So when it comes on, it'll stay on you can set it to 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. So typically it's between 15 and 30 minutes. If you're in a specific space that tends to be a problem, you can extend that, you know, when the lights turn on, even if you walk out of the room, they're going to be on for, let's say, 30 minutes, right? And then they'll shut off. Typically, we like to keep that a little bit shorter, because the purpose is to conserve energy. But they're dual tech, and there's sensitivities on them that can be, you know, turned up, turned down, and you can do those through the software. So in that situation, with a good dual technology sensor placed correctly, I mean, if everybody's completely still,
I can imagine.
run
that.
for a long
Where are
period.
those placed? On the
half
switch
hour.
and then one in the
No,
ceiling?
they're in the ceiling. They cover 2,000 square feet.
I can imagine if it's set to a half hour, then parent-teacher conference, that's not an issue, because they're getting up every 15 minutes or so.
Right.
I know when I went to them, it was like 10 minutes. So if you're sitting there just chatting with the teacher for 10 minutes, the light would go off. But I'm also worried about a teacher who's just working late and just sitting there at their computer. I guess that's not as bad as parent-teacher, because they'll just have to get up and wave their arms, but it's just.
What happens in the parent-teacher? They can't turn.
If you're sitting there just chatting and there's not a lot of movement, the light will it'll
and then
shut off.
and if
The teacher will have to get up and wave their arms to,
So that's-
and it's you know, and it will shut off like almost every meeting, because the meetings are typically 15 minutes.
Can I just jump in here, though? You just said we can control that through the system. So we know when parent-teacher conferences are. Can that be set just as we would the
Occupancy for the
HVAC
building.
system on that
That's
afternoon?
Usually, typically with occupancy sensors, you're going to set the sensitivity for the space so that it works consistently.
Going with the time, not the sensitivity.
Usually,
All the
if it's a-
time, yeah.
So change it from
It's
5 minutes
unlikely
to
that
30 minutes.
it's unlikely that you'd be making those fine-tuned adjustments like when a meeting takes place.
What's the second technology, though? Is that something that we're going to have in these lights that we don't have in the lights that are in the school now that may prevent that altogether?
It's ultrasonic and infrared.
Or maybe even
So the
side
teacher,
movements.
when you say movement, you mean like up walking, waving your arms, or just like if you're sitting there?
Small movement, it should pick up small
This,
movement.
if a sensor's, say, somewhere near or over their desk, if they're working at night and they're just moving papers and things at their desk, would it pick that up? Or do they physically have to be standing and moving?
Small movements it should pick up. So like I said, there's dual technologies, infrared, ultrasonic. Ultrasonic is more sensitive than the infrared. So when you walk into a room, when the lights are off, it's gonna require both of those. It's gonna have to see both of those to turn them on, so you don't have false ons, right? But when you're in the room, only one of those, so the ultrasonic should pick up small movements. I mean, if you're very still for, 15 minutes, I can't tell you that it won't shut off. It may shut off.
So like what's happening now is like, it could just be their planning period. They could be sitting at their desk grading papers or doing their plans, or because they're just sitting at their desk, you'll walk by, they'll be sitting in the dark.
Yeah.
Even during the day, which,
How old is that technology? Is it an older school? Or-
Yeah. So I think the technology has
it's
improved.
high school now.
And the way a lot of the classrooms are designed now with the daylight, there's a lot of daylight. In most classrooms, you probably don't even need the lights on.
The other thing is you have the whole commissioning process, so that could
Right.
be set during commissioning.
Yeah.
They could put a desk in there, maybe do a mock-up of one room before you install all the occupancy sensors, right?
We've had less, this might help.
Technology's gotten
We've
better.
put 10 times more occupancy sensors in spaces and have had less complaints. So if you could imagine 10 years ago, we're putting in occupancy sensors, and not everywhere, just in offices and classrooms, and we got a lot of complaints. Now we're putting them everywhere and getting a lot less complaints. So
So the percentage.
yeah, they're working better. You're not going to run into those sort of issues as frequently as you used to.
Thank you.
Fire alarm system, we're actually proposing a mass notification system. It's, we're designing fire alarm and mass notification for PA 72. You know, it's a code-driven system. We've met with the fire department recently and discussed, you know, some details, enunciator location, Knox box locations, transmission of alarms. So the difference is the mass notification piece that you won't be used to with the amber strobe. That's going to have an input that's connected to the security system that can transmit different messages, you know, lockdown or shelter in place. Those different messages. So that's the difference between a regular fire alarm system and the mass notification system. That's labeled
Is
wrong.
that, NFPA 72, is that code or that's?
Code, that's code, yep. So that says natural gas generator, but it should be diesel. Apologize for that, but we're proposing a diesel-fired 200 kW generator. And these are the loads essentially that will be on it. Life safety loads, exit signs, emergency lighting, fire alarm, and optional standby loads, which is a separate distribution system, which will have freeze protection, access control, security, building management system. We'll put some, we'll talk about receptacles in certain locations that you may want an emergency power. We'll color them separately so that, you know where they are and when you can use them. I don't think, we're not going to have any electronic sinks or faucets. Those are now solar, or they're the turbine type, right, for electronic faucets.
Why wouldn't we want natural gas when it's on the site?
What's that?
Why wouldn't we want natural gas?
Natural gas has to be approved by the electrical inspector.
I thought we were going to ask if we could do that.
We haven't received anything back at this point.
At the meeting with the police and fire department, the fire department wanted diesel.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're worried about a utility getting disrupted, like a gas line break. So in my experience, they usually want diesel because they can control that.
So is that most towns are doing diesel?
Yes. I mean, they really, they kind of say, oh, what if there's an earthquake and the gas line breaks?
There's a couple of factors between diesel and natural gas. At the 200 kW mark, a natural gas generator is substantially more expensive. Then you'll have to run the gas line to it. So the diesel complies with the electric code. So if you go natural gas, you have to get, buy-in from the electrical inspector because you're still relying on off-site fuel for your emergency power.
What's the holding tank size?
We haven't determined that, but it's probably 1,000 gallons or something like that.
Is there such a thing as a propane generator?
There is, but propane generators have their issues. You're going to have a massive propane tank next to it, where a diesel generator has a belly tank right underneath the footprint of it. So propane is something that we haven't, and that's going to carry the same cost as a natural gas generator.
Are you thinking diesel's dirty and gas is clean, or what are you thinking?
Well, just storing that amount of fuel on site, it could leak, and just different.
Yeah.
I mean, at least if you have propane, you open the ground up, it dissipates, right?
So the tanks that are specified are mass compliant with interstitial space monitoring, so the double wall tanks with alarms. You do have to treat the diesel fuel. We're going to run, the generator runs on a load bank every month, for an hour or so.
Can I ask Bob, what do we have now?
We have a combination, diesel and natural gas.
Okay. So we have a vendor we use for diesel fuel
Yes.
already?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you know where you have the natural gas unit? Is it in Bridgewater?
I can't answer that right now.
Yeah, if anyone has any history on the electrical inspector, if they would accept natural gas right now. Right now, the only input we've got is from public safety, which preferred the diesel.
Is this at the 200 kW or higher?
Yeah, we're at 200 kW.
So there would be a cost impact, which is fine if you want to go that way, but there would be a cost impact. So that interstitial space, when you have a double wall tank, like an oil tank or diesel tank, there's a liquid, the diesel's in this one, and then there's this space, and then the outside is here. So there's two walls. It's filled with liquid, and if there's a hole in the inner one, the diesel goes in, the liquid rises, and an alarm goes off. Or if there's a hole on the out one, the level goes down, the alarm goes off. So just to clarify, that's what that's all about. It's not just double walls, but it's double walls with alarms.
Yeah, so if there's any leaks, it's gonna be picked up it's gonna be tied into the fire alarm system will pick that up as a supervisory.
So do we want to explore natural gas? I mean, the benefit is you don't have to refuel it.
Yeah, natural gas does have its benefits from a maintenance standpoint.
But just like you said, service interruptions and
Yep, and there's been
line breaks and things like that. I mean,
and after some of the recent natural gas issues that have occurred,
capability.
I think some inspectors are less lenient on allowing natural gas. Or if you're going to use this building not as a shelter, but we're putting some rooftops on it, get some ventilation and some additional lighting in the gym, like we talked about, gym admin. If you're relying on the natural gas and that goes down, you can't use that. But on the same token, you got to make sure you have someone to refuel your diesel. It's going to be sized for full load, 48 hours. So, we can look at a 72-hour tank. It's just more diesel fuel you have to hold on site that you have to treat. But the reality of a 40-hour tank, you're not going to be running at full load. You're probably, running at 50%. So it's probably going to be more like, 5 to 6 days.
From an emergency management perspective too, diesel's always very well, there's always plenty of supply of diesel. If anything, gasoline is your most different commodity to find because you got to pump it, but diesel's always available. Or not always, but more prominently than anything else.
Gene, what did we price out?
We priced out the diesel tank.
We did, okay.
So again, if we put a propane tank in, clearly that's more money and the generator's more expensive. And if we go natural gas, the generator's more expensive and there's a little more piping.
Can I ask a quick question since we're on natural disasters? The worst case scenario, and the generator doesn't work and there's zero power to the building and it's occupied, and this is kind of a question for you and Dom, is there any issue with the ventilation? In other words, if there's no power to the ventilation, can they just crack all the windows and they're fine? Or is there any air quality issues if you have a fully occupied school with zero power?
Depends on the time of year. If it's in the winter time, the units are going to shut down. If there's not power, they shut down. We wouldn't recommend opening windows if it's, cold out. Keep all the warmth in that you can. In terms of the HVAC, if you had to have a gas line interruption, that's a problem with the heating system. Your heating system, the gas is a fuel for both your rooftop ventilation units, which are gas-fired, and your boiler. What the generator is going to do, whether it's natural gas or diesel, it's going to power really the heating system. Normally, we would shut down, in an emergency, shut down ventilation air requirements and just provide heating, and then that would likely be the majority of the building just through the boilers. The boiler and the radiant loop, the hot water perimeter heating loop.
I understand the electrical inspector may not want it, but if there's no gas supply, we're not going to be able to run heat anyway.
If there's no, but the code the code really is for people to egress the building. What the electrical inspector is concerned about is the life safety branch of the generator, which is fire alarm and emergency lighting. That's on its own separate distribution, protected by 2-hour, cabling and rooms. So what he's concerned about is that you have 90 minutes of emergency lighting so that you can safely egress the building in an emergency. The optional standby stuff is all additional that he's not really concerned with. So the concern is from, you know, a life safety standpoint only. Since we're installing a generator, we're going to have an optional standby branch by itself to serve, you know, heating boilers to protect the building from freezing in a prolonged outage. As long as, yeah, if you lose the natural gas supply to the building, that's a problem. You know, in the dead of winter, if you lost natural gas supply to the building, you know, everyone would be able to egress the building safely with the code-required emergency lighting. However, you wouldn't have heat if you had no natural gas, right? So your freeze protection is, you know, out of luck, even though your generator is running.
You probably have that in all your schools though, right? Natural gas.
Yeah. So that optional standby branch is there to, you know, protect your pipes from freezing, and we're going to add some additional lights that are not, you know, required just for egress. All your communications, you know, that's going to be on it as well.
Phone systems?
Yeah. Phone systems, paging systems, security systems, building management systems, everything will be on the optional standby.
I think we can look at having a gas-fired generator.
But we'll talk to the building inspector and the electrical and plumbing inspectors and see. You know,
Yeah, we can look at it as an alternate.
Well, we'll see if they're okay with the diesel.
With the gas.
With the gas, natural gas.
Well, right now we have diesel.
Yeah, if they're
Oh, they're
okay
okay
with
with the diesel? They're gonna be okay with the diesel
Yeah,
because the question is how it's written in the code where they want a non-interruptible fuel source.
Right.
And most fire departments consider natural gas interruptible. Whereas they say fuel oil, you can manage that, you can bring it on the site yourself and not be subject to utility lines. So that's what we're up against.
So there's a provision in the electric code that says if the natural gas and the power source, it's highly unlikely that they're both down at the same time. You know, they'll allow it if the electrical inspector allows it. So for the electrical inspector to allow it, he's going to say, all right, give me a letter that this is, you know, reliable and it's highly unlikely that they'll both go down. So
Well,
you used to be able to
go
go
to
to-
guys, right? So,
Yeah.
so how are we making the decision? It's fire department have said that they like diesel,
right.
so we got to check and see if
If it's
the other authorities having jurisdiction are okay with that.
yeah, we can cost out the natural gas as an option. But it's really not even the fire department that drives that, it's the electrical inspector.
But that's why I want to check and see if the two of them agree with.
Yeah, but
one of
they
them.
are also an AHJ, to Shane's point. The fire department is an AHJ, the electrical inspector is, they both
Did you
have
say
to
you
agree.
already asked the electrical inspector?
We
but you
haven't
didn't?
gotten the back from the electrical inspector. The fire department,
But you asked him, you just haven't gotten a reply?
No, we haven't
No, we
spoken to the
haven't.
electrical
Oh,
inspector.
well, let's just ask him. If
we
he
can
says
ask.
no, then we
Yeah.
move on.
So
right?
when we met with the fire department, the preference was for diesel, so that, and it's
Yeah.
less costly, so that's the direction we went.
So what if electrical says, yeah, fine, go gas, and fire department says, say diesel?
No, we're gonna ask them the other way. The fire department's requested diesel, are you okay with diesel?
Then
I'm
we
not saying how we ask, I'm talking about the answers.
Right, then the price needs to come to us, and then we need to decide that.
Yeah,
Because that's
natural
gonna be a
gas-
cost impact to the project.
Natural gas is a higher cost.
Right.
Diesel is what we have now, and diesel is acceptable, it's code compliant.
We
We
said the
don't have-
last 5 or 6 schools I've done involving diesel. I think I,
Is natural gas higher just initially, but for maintenance, it's less, or is it always higher?
There's less maintenance because you don't have to treat fuel.
but you're gonna burn that diesel off because you're gonna run it every year.
Yeah, you're supposed to run it,
I
yes.
think the payback's probably 100 years.
Yeah, it's negligible.
It's negligible whether it's,
It's more, the-
So we'll ask the
I
question.
think we
and
should just ask the
come-
question.
Come back.
If he says no, then we move on. If he says no, we have it in other locations, then I guess it'd be a cost-based, operational type decision, and then
so we'll give.
I don't want to get in between the electrical inspector and the fire department, but I don't think we're the first ones to ask him a question, so. Maybe we just see what he says.
Yeah, it's probably not, but I think,
Because other jurisdictions are using it.
yeah, there's certain
Not like
jurisdictions,
we're trying to do something that's not normal, you know?
right, there's certain jurisdictions that you know right off the bat, they don't allow it.
Right.
And there's certain jurisdictions that used to allow it, but there's been a lot of, natural gas issues in a part of the state where it was actually shut down for a while. And that's, the answer to just go, yeah, sure, natural gas is certainly not an automatic anymore.
Okay, so we'll find that out, but just in terms of what's on it, are we going agreement there?
Yeah, the one thing, I think we updated the narrative, has the elevator on it as well. We did put an elevator, we did put the elevator on it based on,
As far as all the faucets and everything,
what's that?
the flushometers and faucets and sinks, those are on the system?
Those actually are
they're
not on
hardwired,
it.
right?
They're not powered.
Oh, they're not?
They're not powered. If they're electronic faucets,
Yep.
they're not like powered 120 volts. They're the battery operated that recharge themselves.
Oh, okay.
So the powered ones is kind of old technology.
Are you expecting that everything's electric?
I thought I read that it was hardwired.
No, it wouldn't be hardwired.
We'll check with the plumbing guy, what he has spec'd. Do you have a preference either way? You probably don't want to be changing batteries, right?
No, it's always battery.
What?
I thought I read it was hardwired.
I'm not specing the plumbing fixtures, but I'm almost positive that they're going to be the rechargeable battery ones.
It's this time.
All right.
I had a question on the life safety.
Yep.
Is there any future fire code coming up for CO sensors in the,
Oh, CO detection is
Yeah.
part of the fire alarm, so CO detection is required in all classrooms. That's part of the design. And one piece of the life safety is there is a manual transfer switch that we have on the life safety branch for maintenance of the generator, so you can roll up to the service company. You don't have to leave the building during the maintenance. They can roll up, tie in a temporary generator. They can service that at any time, and then unhook it, and it's a nice manual transfer switch with cam lock connections.
And with the CO, that'll be integrated, the fire alarm and then the HVAC system as well, on any detection of it to shut off any gas.
Right.
Fire furnace or.
All right, so moving on to security systems. The building will contain an integrated electronic security system which consists of, three major systems. Access control, which is your door locks, electronic locks, cards, fobs. Intrusion, which is your burglar alarm, essentially. Door contacts, motion sensors, keypads. And CCTV, which is your cameras, your video surveillance and video management system. We specify an integrated system that has the CCTV and the access control under one software platform. One of the things that's been discussed is there's an existing access control platform in the district. Name is escaping me right now. You don't happen to remember it?
integrated security?
No.
Or the Galaxy?
Galaxy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a Galaxy system, which, based on our research and, talking with you folks in the security consultant, is limited. And we were proposing using this building as an open spec with a newer, more up-to-date, robust access control system. So it will be an open spec, and it's not going to be integrated to the Galaxy. But we're going to design it so that you can use the same card, right? Just going to be multiple databases. So you don't have to carry multiple cards. You can use that same card. We're going to design the proximity readers to be able to read those cards, or fobs if you have them. But you just have to manage two databases at each site. And then from that, this system will be expandable if you want to add on to it. So there'll be card readers at all the major entry points. There'll be a man trap at the entry. That'll have, you see the picture there is a video intercom system where you buzz in, and they can unlock the door. You walk into the vestibule, and then there'll be like a window there that you can pass your credentials through. Once you're credentialed, they'll allow you into the administration area, and then as you're cleared, you get into the building. And then there'll be card readers on the inner vestibule. So if you are staff, you swipe in to the first vestibule, swipe in, and then you're into the building. So it's just a security feature, or man trap they call it, at the main entry. You'll have access control on other entry points throughout the building, and building partitions so that in after hours, or if there's a lockdown, certain doors will shut and lock and partition the building so that it's you don't have access back into the classrooms. So essentially, you have that side of the building that's going to be partitioned off when you have after hours activities in the gym or the cafeteria.
So we went through, we did have a long meeting one day with the fire chief, our security consultant, David, Jeff, the administration. So kind of the location of cameras, the location of these card readers, how the building gets partitioned, all that stuff was reviewed, kind of adjusted, and David's proceeding under that direction.
Can I, sorry, just to Bob, the access control system, so we're going to have two. We have one that right now runs every other building, but wouldn't run this one, correct?
Yes, that's what he's explaining. Yes.
Okay.
But it's not a very flexible building system, right?
Yeah, Galaxy,
It's
I've never even
proprietary.
heard of it until that meeting. So I don't, it's not going to have, and I looked at it with the security consultant, and it's, it doesn't have the integration with video analytics. It doesn't have the features that we want in a school.
So you say that the cards would be able to use it in all locations. So if you created a card and gave credentials to other buildings, you could create that from this building and add on
You'd have to, so
existing?
what I mean by multiple databases is, so that you have a card, right, that operates at 125 kilohertz or 13.5 megahertz, right? It's just, it's a standard. Then you have the reader, right, that can look at they call it multi-class. It can look at 125 or 13.5, and those are standard throughout the systems, right? It's the brains, it's the server, the head end, and the database where you put Bob Pacheco has access to these rooms, right? So if you were to be added on, or a new person was to be added on, you can give them one card, but you'd have to go to to this Mitchell school and type in their information. Then you got to go to the Galaxy system and type in their information.
Okay.
So that's the best we can do with multiple head ends. And then that's going to transition you. And what you could do in the future is you can actually change out door controllers in your Galaxy system and replace them with, whatever we end up getting here, which is going to be either, we're going to spec a Vigilon, Genetec, or S2, which are the three major security systems.
So right now, kind of in layperson's terms, what I heard was, we can spec the Galaxy system, but it's maybe outdated or it's limited in what it can do compared to what modern security systems can do. And so we thought that you would be better off with kind of a more open system and that can do more, but you can still use your Galaxy card on it. And then as the district goes forward over the years, you can kind of bring your other schools up to the same.
So that's what I was going towards. I'm all for, please take us out of the Stone Ages. I'm just thinking from the school committee budget committee, I'm looking at, all right, what is that going to cost us in the long run when things go down? Are we piecemealing? But it sounds like that'll be not necessarily things going down at this school, but things going down at our other locations, the other buildings in town. So that's where that question came from. So
Yes, no problem at all. It's kind of
Just-
confusing.
If you did want to spec the Galaxy, that would be proprietary, so that would require a vote because of the procurement laws, you have to name 3. So you would have to go to the school committee and have them vote on it to do that, and it would probably make that more expensive because you're limiting to that one.
Whenever you have a proprietary item, that cost is inflated.
You want to break.
Yeah,
You want to break.
well, I mean, I think that should be a committee-wide decision, but I don't think I would vote to go with that, but.
I think you'd be paying a premium for a system that doesn't do
Antiquated.
what modern systems do.
Right.
Yeah, from what I could read up on the Galaxy, I mean, it's an access control system that does pretty basic. It locks and unlocks doors. There's no real video integration. You know, it's not what we would see. And it'll limit us with, you know, lockdown inputs and different shelter-in-place alarms that we want to be able to integrate to our mass notification.
Did you have a
Yeah,
question?
just a quick question. What is the system, or what are you envisioning the system as far as, would each room have like an emergency call, or how would that happen if something happened that they could hit and either an alarm sounds or notification is sent to the office that there's an emergency, or is there anything that would be like a one button or anything like that? If you can.
So
get my drift.
there's a phone in every classroom.
There is, okay.
Right. So the phone, you could pick up and call the office, but the way we have it designed is that anywhere you have a card reader within the building, and then we're going to have, you know, what we call lockdown readers. We're going to spot readers in certain places like gymnasium, cafeteria, where we haven't gotten into this detail in the meetings, but we will. We're going to propose that you have your card that you just walk in the doors and you swipe and you unlock doors. We're going to propose this as a separate card. We'll call that your emergency card. And if you take the emergency card and swipe it at any one of these readers, it could put the building into a lockdown.
Like a silent lockdown?
I want to, if I could, we're getting into detail here that we may be, because this is a public meeting, I'm afraid we're giving too much out for security reasons. So I think it's a great question, but maybe we do that in the working group to where it's.
Right, so
not
to
giving
answer
away
it
the-
generally, we're working on sequences for, you know, those scenarios. So that they're easy, so that, you know, it's a safe environment and faculty and staff have the ability to transmit alarms where they need to.
Sorry, I just don't want to.
That's okay. I
Give away-
apologize if I started to go into too much detail.
Too much detail on a security system that we made.
So
Question
camera,
for the superintendent, just on that. Do we need to get school committee approval to move off of the Galaxy system? Anything we?
It's more, that's kind of more of a budgetary, that we would probably go through the budget sub with, just changing the system, but they wouldn't, you know, they basically, we upgrade systems all the time, and it's more of that we would bring it to the financial subcommittee to make sure that we could access those monies either through operational budget or some type of capital item. So we don't really necessarily would get, I mean, we would obviously like their blessing on it, but usually we've worked with safety consultants and we kind of vetted it out pretty well before we even bring it to their level. And then it's more of a budgetary concern at that point than an actual changing of system, because we change things.
Okay.
so cameras, we'll have cameras throughout the corridors, large spaces, you know, perimeter of the building. Anywhere you have an access control, we'll have a specific camera so that you can see who's using the card. So there'll be a, you know, full surveillance video management system with recording on site, remote access from public safety, or, you know, faculty and staff through a web application. So it'll be, you know, a state-of-the-art, up-to-date integrated electronic security system. Any questions on the security?
I just had one question. Will it be a swipe to get into the classrooms too?
No. Nope.
Key?
It would be, I believe, a key. I think that the protocol is that they're locked all the time, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
So the teachers will have an actual key.
an actual key, okay.
So it'll be in the key hierarchy, it'll just be a classroom key. It won't be able to be used anywhere else. All right, and briefly on the technology system, there's going to be a tel data system throughout, which will consist of Cat 6A cabling in every space for data and voice, back to IDF closets, and from the IDF closet to the MDF will be 10 gig fiber optic cabling. So you'll have a state-of-the-art backbone technology system. And then in the classroom, this is an image of the classroom, systems that you typically see. To keep in mind, none of this stuff is selected at the the design stage, but we have to accommodate for wiring in the building. So discussions on projectors, ultra smart throw projectors, smart boards, Promethean boards, that's going to be discussed further down the line because technology is going to change, and that'll be purchased through state contract. So it's just, we're going to start putting together budgets for those quantities, and we'll start meeting to discuss the actual equipment. But all these pieces that you see here would be part of the technology equipment procurement process. But we need to start discussing them to make sure that we're preparing the wiring in the building to accommodate those devices. That concludes the electrical, security, and technology.
Any questions for electrical?
So I wrote notes that we're going to talk to the fire department electrical inspector about the generator and get back to you all. And then confirm, just internally, we'll confirm that all the plumbing fixtures are the rechargeable battery.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks. You guys. All right. Have a nice evening.
So we're going on 2 hours. RDA has, I think, 20 slides, and we can kind of go through them as fast as possible, or as much detail as you want.
15 minutes?
I vote fast.
Yes.
So why don't we fly through them and just people raise their hands whenever they have a question?
Will.
So they voted, since we're 2 hours in, to kind of go fast and they'll ask questions if they have them.
Is there any score yet? No. Let's go. You watching the game on your TV over there?
No, I wish I
I just want to hear you yell touchdown in the middle of the game.
So what I wanted to hit here first was there was a few plan changes and updates from the previous one that we had discussed. I wanted to hit the large items there. I think you saw them in the PowerPoint that I had sent out. But let's just go ahead and start with the site plan. There was a question, I believe it maybe even came from Shane at the last one, is, to start to talk about parking allocation, and the sense of where the teachers would park, and that is in the light green areas, but also, we'd also in the red areas here, so the staff would be in those red areas right there. What was talked about is that the parent drop-off we would have in the dark, this blue right here, the royal blue, would be the parent drop-offs where they'd walk up to with their children and check them in at the school. But also on the back side, that the pre-K would actually enter through the back side where at the first floor level. And that would be designed just for that, because the pre-K is 2 phases during the day. You have a morning phase and an afternoon phase. And so we looked at that being, and separating that from the regular schedule of the drop-off of K through second grade. And
So
this is a result of a meeting that,
Yeah, so we've just gone through with the district, and I think, you're talking about maybe numbering spaces for staff or whatever. It's all in flux, but it was something that we were asked to kind of go through. Eventually, on the site, we'll be going through site plan approval, one of those permits that Shane had gone through. So it's just important that we kind of lay out how the site circulation is going to work, and we're all on the same page when we go in for that approval.
what you're going to see is you're going to see three main slides that actually identify certain areas of change. If you notice in this area right here, if you remember, we had the elevator machine room, a control room that was opening up into the gym. We looked at a different location for that, and in the preceding slides, we'll show you where that is at. And then we had, that slide will come a little bit later, but what I wanted to identify is we also, on the first level, there were some revisions to the admin area. We'll talk about that when it blown up. And then also in the pre-K, what we were able to do is combine the DT room as a shared DT room.
It's a discrete
So
trial.
let's, yeah,
Discrete
just
trial.
explain what DT is.
Discrete trials testing.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's just in pre-K?
Yes, that was only in the pre-K. Here's a blow-up of that. And so you have the shared DT room right here, and you have your pre-K on both sides there. And so it gave more space to the classroom area when we went to a shared DT room.
And it also opened, I don't know if you remember, but kind of the genesis was that it allowed us to place some staff bathrooms on that hallway, which we hadn't been able to do before. So I think we'd come in with a real rough sketch last time, but, it's progressed and it's becoming hardlined, so to speak.
The admin area right here, this being the administration area and the entry into the school, and this is the man trap is basically for entry of anyone that wants to come through beside class hours. The student egress and entry would be at these levels, and doors would be on timers there, typically 7:30 to 8 o'clock where they would come in there. And after those hours, then it would be by key fob or card reader through this set of doors along the right. One of the main things that happened at one of the meetings, the fire department talked about second means of egress out of the administration area besides going through the corridor through this door right here, the back side of the administration area. They saw that there needed to be an additional point actually directly to the exterior, and that was what was added here is that this corridor was opened up here. It did not really affect the spaces dramatically. We just lost some square footage here to one of the psych rooms that was right there. But what was added, we added a cooling off room, a DE room, into the admin area that was needed there. But that was the main impact there at the administration area.
Was that so that they could take people out and the nurses too? or-
Well, fire department, if they had to come in, or the ambulance had to come in and take a student out by cart or by wheelchair, they didn't want to go out the front door because of the effect of the other children seeing them. They wanted to be able to egress the building. And along this area right here is roadway, right along this area right here, so they could come out and be separate from the students. This is the second floor right here, and you'll see a blow up, but we actually added the control room to the second level. For the elevator right there. And then we also wanted to talk about the toilet rooms and the sight lines. What we did was we basically relocated and flipped a lot of the bathrooms so that they are away from the vision points or sight lines into classrooms, the sink area there. And so that's a typical that actually was addressed all the way through, but it was a question that was pointed out that we wanted to address there.
So the staff wanted, when they walked down the hallway, they wanted all the hand washing, the kind of the troublemaking to be in view. And then before, one of your comments before was the way the toilet rooms were arranged. Some of them were kind of, you walk out from a classroom and you're looking at, you can't see into the toilet room, but you're looking at the baffle. And so Jeff reworked how these are set up, kind of based on those concerns.
So have you guys gone through all the plumbing counts and we're right now?
Yeah, we're in the process of verifying everything with our code consultant. I'm sure we are, because there's so many toilets.
There's so many toilets.
But we should we are verifying.
There's a lot of toilets.
In our code consultant.
My apologies.
Should we cut back on the number of toilets?
No. Just the need for the type of school it is.
When you see the plumbing.
Well, you got like all the pre-K and K.
Well, I mean, I sort of asked that tongue in cheek, but, I mean, when you're talking about toilet fixtures, those add up.
Right.
Yeah,
But-
the reason we said it is because there's so many pre-K and so many kindergarten classrooms. That's really the driver. It's like,
Okay.
they're swimming. But they're all necessary.
Right,
you know?
okay.
So,
And then, so there's two handicap stalls here, is that?
Typically, the way you have it, right here is you have a handicap and then you have an alternate that meets the requirement. There's always a second alternate. When you have a certain amount of stall toilets, you have a large one and then you have an alternate size one.
There'll be 5 kids in there.
That's how the code reads there.
And the handicap ones, there'll be 5 kids for one.
And just then, so your sinks will be here, so your power hand dryers or your towel dispensers will be in that area too?
Yes, too, yes. And what we try to do is, you can see the sight line.
There is none.
There is none. You basically see that back wall right there.
What's happening just here?
Sinks right there.
gotta get filled in.
It's got to be filled in or adjusted. It's,
Full-size handicap?
that's what,
Diners closet or
well,
something?
we're working on that. We're trying to get the quantities in, verify them, and then, the spaces are still being, finessed a little bit. Any other questions there?
No, I like that a lot, though.
Second level. This is the control room, the elevator control room, directly across from the elevator. And it has a visual sight, which is, the optimum that you want to have there. This is slightly different than what's there now at the old Mitchell School. It's a hydraulic. And it's considered a machine room, where now it's more on a traction type elevator here. And it's more of a control panel room. And it doesn't have to be adjacent, it doesn't have to be on the lowest level. It's a control room. And so the one item that we've met is it has to be within 10 feet of the shaft. And we have that.
How loud are those rooms now?
They're not anything, because you're not hearing the hydraulics.
Okay.
It's a control room. It's literally a control panel.
Okay.
You'll have the sound within the shaft.
Motor's on top of the cab.
Yes.
Oh, all right, okay.
So what you have in the Mitchell now, there's actually a piston that goes into the ground, and it's all driven by hydraulics, kind of like you used to raise cars up, right, in an auto mechanic, or maybe you still do. But anyway, so this one's kind of all electric.
So just before we go up that, so there's been a bunch of changes in the layout which affect the space summary. But the next meeting, you're going to present the changes which, you guys remember the space summary was that complicated spreadsheet that said what size every room was, that's locked into the PFA, so any changes to that probably require a vote of this committee, because that may affect the reimbursement rate. If there's more space in the nurses and now we're over that allocation, they may not reimburse that. If we change the grossing factor, they may not reimburse something, so we'll get that for the next
And that's
meeting.
what is on the next schedule.
Okay, and a description of the differences.
Changes, yes. This sheet right here is basically talks about interior finishes and what we're assuming and what was in the cost estimate during the schematic design. But a typical classroom would have a sheet vinyl linoleum versus what is out there now in many classrooms is the VCT. One of the comments that was there was
Jeff,
one
sorry.
low maintenance.
Sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
We need a motion to continue the meeting past 8:30. It's 8:35. So I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I was hoping someone might vote to adjourn, no?
Don't give Lil any ideas.
8 o'clock didn't happen, my apologies.
Sorry, Jeff. I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's fine. But I wanted to point that out is that the school will have a sheet vinyl rolled product versus a VCT. What it is meant for, it's a non-wax product. It's mopped and it has a certain sheen to it. You don't have to wax it, strip it, slow maintenance. I think that was one of the things that was driving it right from the beginning was reducing maintenance there. Rubber base, this is wood base here, but a rubber base, painted drywall.
Can I ask a question on the flooring? Sorry. So if something gets dropped on the floor gets a hole in it or something happens to it, can we cut it out and put a new piece in, or do we have to?
There's two the products that we typically specify are color through.
Okay.
The base color is just not a coating on top.
Okay.
That's going to be one step right there. But yes, you can cut it out. Another step is that if it's, the joints are welded, in a way that, so that, when they go together, they're welded. And so there's a joint there and you can use that actually as a repair tool too.
Okay.
The painted drywall, it's high abuse.
So the high abuse is more expensive, is that? We don't typically do that in the classrooms?
Well, it's the doubled paper one that we're looking for. It's not that cementitious type.
Not the fiber rock.
It's not the fiber rock. This is more of a, there's a high impact one that we recommend out in the corridors, but
So this is, okay.
this is.
What's the premium for this one? Is there a premium?
I don't know what the premium is. It's probably, there is one, but it's what we carried or told the estimators to carry in the schematic design. So we can go through it. Yeah, I'm sure. We can go through it at the DD estimate if you want.
The casework, we saw it to be plastic laminate, commercial grade casework.
So plastic laminate, it's like your kitchen counter or whatever, and that's what you had in the old Mitchell. So it's not wood cabinets, they're not metal, it's plastic laminate.
The solids, the countertops would be.
Tables. Yeah. Sorry.
That's all right. The countertops would be a solid surface. I would reference it to similar to Corian or Fountainhead. It handles quite a bit of abuse, water resistant, color through. It can be damaged and those scratches sanded out. It's a good product to look at. It's great for windowsills. There's no delamination at the windowsills of moisture wherever an issue there. The windows are aluminum framed windows with sunshades, similar to what you see in sunshades right here on the inside. White marker boards. That was one of the things that was pretty much across the board, and we talked with all the teachers that they wanted the marker boards versus the tack board surfaces. Doors would be a solid core wood veneer door, commercial grade. Basically, we would look at it, whether it be an oak or a cherry or a maple. That hasn't really been decided yet. But all the framing of the door is all solid lumber. It's not particle, so it doesn't pull out. It's a very good door there. Suspended acoustical ceilings, 2x2 grid, and an NC70 basically is an acoustics from that level there. And then pendant lighting. David talked about that a lot of the lighting is reflected off, ambient lighting, it's not direct.
So pendant, like this is recessed lighting, right? Pendant lighting, I can't remember if it's at Mitchell or not, but the light fixture's down from the ceiling a couple feet. It kind of shines up and a little bit down.
They're more of a bar, 4 foot and 6 foot. You know, you see them in classrooms, used to be continuous, and now with the lighting that's improved, they're more sectional pieces. Gymnasium, we're going to have an athletic sports floor, engineered maple wood floor versus just a solid floor. Helps in movement, but there's still going to be, you know, some humidity, but with the air conditioning there, reduce it quite a bit for movement.
It kind of bounces, right?
It has more resilience for the knees. Vented base, it helps for circulation of the wood floor. We have the high-impact resilient gypsum wallboard. We'll have 7 feet high wall pads. We'll have I apologize on that, a 4-tier motorized composite bleachers. Basically, it's 4 tiers, push the button, the bleachers come out, and they go back in. What was also discussed in our meeting was that, you know, the scorer's table would be integral to the bleachers and tied in that way. It wouldn't be going into the floor. It'll be a cable back to the back wall. As an acoustical measure, we'll have acoustical high-impact resilient Tectum wall panels around the perimeter above the wall pads.
So just come back there, so the motorized blackboards, so they'll just be at the ends, or will they be the crossboards?
We'll have a total of 6.
6.
Did I jumped that one? Yeah, I did. I apologize. We'll have the main court, and then we'll have side courts. Total of 6.
There'll also be a solid wall that's motorized, right?
Yes, there will be. And that right there, they've asked for it to be somewhat acoustical in the sense it'll have when it's set, it'll drop sill, and then at the top, we'll have a solid soffit.
So one thing, you know, a lot of gyms, you might be used to going in and it's on concrete block walls. So this is high impact drywall above 7 feet. So 7 feet's like maybe that door height there. And so Jeff's talking about wall pads all the way around the building, 7 feet. But the wall above is going to be this fiber rock, which, you know, you won't be able to dent with a ball or anything like that. But it's not a concrete block system.
What's behind the pad?
So I was going to say, what's up? to
Behind
7
the
feet?
fiber rock's behind the padding too. And we'll bring you samples of that stuff. I mean, you can't break it. You can screw into it and hang cabinets.
Is that less expensive than CMUs or using with own?
It's less expensive because, you know, you can just have metal stud walls and use this product.
In a gym,
And, you know, it's very typical. I can't remember specifically, but I'm sure it's in one or more of the gymnasiums or cafeterias that we went to visit. People just can't afford, you know, the concrete block walls often.
So can I just, not to interrupt because you're going through this list, but everything on this list was spec'd out in?
In schematic design.
Okay.
Yep.
Wanted to make sure. Thank you.
in the gym, I'm sorry if I skipped one, I apologize there. The structure, the ceiling structure will be exposed and painted out. The benefit there, less abuse, the balls are going to fly everywhere. And then you make it monolithic and it doesn't feel so heavy either also when you paint it out. You'll see some pictures as I go forward about that. Motorized window shades. I want to just talk about that, but the aluminum frame translucent glass windows, basically that is, what is it, cow wall that we were looking to do? Or is that are we going to go with a frosted glass?
Either frosted or clear. But we have some high windows facing the south side, which is great to get light in. But if you ever want to use the stage and have a projector, we want to make sure that there's shades to darken the room, but they're so high, they have to be motorized.
That was one of the things that was talked about in our meeting, whether that actually had shades, and when I went back, it did have the shades. All right, and then at the gymnasium, the pendant lighting, it's similar to that, but it'd be the LED type lighting. They'll have cages on that, stuff like that. I will tell you that the cafeteria is very similar to the classroom without going through every single item. One thing
Pat
that...
has a question. Sorry.
Do we want to use, the sheet vinyl looks so cheap, I don't know how it holds up. In the hallways now, we have terrazzo? Do we have terrazzo in those hallways now?
It's in the old.
That'd be great.
GMES.
It's super expensive.
Sheet vinyl is the standard.
Sheet vinyl is standard now? Really? It holds up pretty well?
First flooring.
We can bring some products in to talk to you about that as we go forward, but it's...
Maybe in that entrance lobby, we might do.
I think the hallways in the
porcelain
cap.
tile.
I don't know. I just thought that a more durable, longer-lasting material in the hallway and the cap.
It's pretty easy to put a number on it, and we can do that.
That's the sheet vinyl right there in that hallway that we put in this building, I think, right?
Right.
I don't know, I didn't notice it. I'll go look.
That's it, right? Have you seen that, Will? No? Yeah.
I mean, they use it in hospitals, they use it in all sorts of high-traffic areas.
What's an upcharge to do something like the terrazzo?
Yeah, like I said, we can put a number on it pretty easily.
Terrazzo will be 8 to 10 times more expensive.
10 times?
If we can get anybody to do it. There's only one company in Massachusetts does it, the quality.
Yeah, that's the cementitious terrazzo, but there is a synthetic one that's out there also.
From the maintenance standpoint, though, this rolled has got less maintenance because you don't have to wax it and strip and wax and, right?
Right. It's less maintenance than the floor tiles that you have in most of your schools, probably.
Right.
But definitely Mitchell. And then terrazzo is kind of the same thing. It's less maintenance because you just have to wash it.
Okay.
Terrazzo's what's in the high school, the old high school now, I think, right?
In the hallways?
In the old high school, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever you call it, no.
Gene, what's your opinion on
It looks
polished
It's long
concrete?
lasting, yeah, we do racks.
What's your opinion on polished concrete? It doesn't have to be high-end, but like the other day I was in Walmart, right? And you've got trolleys going all over, or carts going up and down this thing.
Right.
What is that finish?
If you do a high price finish, it can look nice and you can have color and this and that. Otherwise, it's a pretty dull finish. And I guess, our thought is we want to make this bright and cheery and fun for kids. So it really, really limits the color.
Right.
I mean, I don't like it. Probably great in Walmart. And I don't mean to disparage you. I understand the question. It has it's gray or brown. And that's it.
I think I love it because it's a little less expensive, but
Yeah.
you're always going to see the cracks, right? Concrete cracks. So, no matter how you finish it, you're always going to see the some cracks in it. People don't like that, but I agree, it's, at Walmart and Home Depot, they all do it. I'm not sure you want to do it in a school, because it's.
Right. Maybe in a prison.
We do it like in art schools and colleges, right, where that's sort of accepted. I'm not sure you want it in your art or in this new school.
He doesn't care.
All right.
Sorry, we're looking at the kitchen, almost done.
I'll try to go a little faster, but,
He snuck this one in, because it's real small print.
Cafeteria is like a classroom.
it's like a classroom. The one of the big comments there is that there's a tile, porcelain tile, 12 by 12 tile, that is in the cafeteria area. That's
On the wall, you mean?
on the walls. It's, you know.
So instead of the pads, like up on the gym walls, it's tile. Because obviously you want a rugged surface where people are gonna touch it.
All right. I think that's the big item there. We also talked that we'll have some acoustical ceiling clouds for the stage area, you know, to direct sound. And then there'll be some specialized wall treatment at the stage proscenium wall. And what will be in the cafeteria, you'll have pendant lighting, recessed down lighting, and some track lighting to support the stage. The stage.
Do you want us to go through all the rooms, like seriously,
Yeah.
or just? No?
Okay, I think the pictures coming forward may help. It's up to you.
Okay, so I did a couple of things. So, anyway, talked to Bob briefly. So you got tile floor in the bathrooms.
Yes, I do.
I'm not sure if we're doing epoxy in a lot of places. I don't know if Bob has an opinion on
I mean, tiles,
the other.
tiles more durable.
The tile's more durable. We do have epoxy in the kitchen. And I think that's a place where you get, you know, a good bang for your buck when we go with the epoxy, because it has an integral curb. It's not to say that the tile isn't that way, because we actually do a waterproofing underneath the tile and up the walls 18 inches approximately to tie it in, so it is waterproof if there was, you had wanted to wash down the actual area.
Phenolic partitions in the bathrooms, you okay with phenolic instead of something else?
You know, there's no rusting there.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and it can be patched. Maybe not good looking, but it can be patched. I think at this grade level, you're not carving into it, so I think you're fine there.
What else, Shane?
And just then, so Derek, we haven't talked about lockers yet. You know, they're gonna be half height. What size the lockers are? I assume they're metal lockers,
Yeah,
except for the wood cubbies.
we've been showing metal lockers that are a foot by, the top is like 4 feet. So, you know, top's like this high.
Are they kind of creating the boundary for some of those,
Pull out spaces.
Standard
learning, sir.
Yeah.
And then in the pre-K and K classrooms, we were gonna have open cubbies, but they'd be wood.
Did we say inside the classrooms?
Yes.
Yes.
Inside the classroom.
Right.
So we just need to confirm the count, right? We can
Yes.
just do that outside of this, but I'm sure we have
Yep.
Good
enough.
point. The one area that we do have CMU right at the moment is at the stairs. And you're going with a polished ground face CMU block there. The stair shafts are rated, and this is one area where we would recommend that, get that rating, and we don't have to do the self-supporting stairs and all of that. It's not an apples to apples, and it's an apples to oranges type thing, but it allows.
It allows us not to have fireproofing on the steel frame, which is, right?
Right, that's where I was leading to. The only other area that has CMU is the elevator shaft. All right. Stairs will have rubber tile, and it would be treads and risers, continuous. Painted stair parts, stainless steel handrails, no painted handrails. We do that cleanliness and easy cleaning. Those are the big points there. I would say to you is that at the kitchen, we have the epoxy floor. One of the things that we do here is we do the full height FRP panels up to 10 feet. And it's the commercial grade, it's not the, the cheap, it's the commercial grade, and you get the thicker product. We actually do a waterproofing on behind that, and so it can be wiped down, and it's good for maintenance. There. So those are the big items right there. The kitchen also had a walk-in freezer, refrigerator.
Sorry, real quick, I promised the last question for this slide from me. For anywhere on that there's carpet, is it carpet squares or rolled out carpet?
That, it's open for discussion there.
Okay.
We typically do the roll product.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that the carpet squares can be used, but where we have that is we'll have it in the admin areas, and we'll also have it in some of the, I think in the media center area.
I'm just thinking a kid getting sick and
Well,
an accident.
the carpets
Staining
nowadays,
carpet.
I mean, even this one right here, it's like a loop carpet. It's to minimize traffic. It's antimicrobial. It's meant to, a lot of it is solution dyed all the way through the threads. Literally, you could almost pour bleach on it if you had to.
Okay.
These might be squares. Yeah, these are squares here. But, that, it's open for discussion when we do that.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
Bill had one.
Handrails.
Yes, the vestibule area and those different areas where there's high traffic and when the children are coming in, is that going to be a rubberized?
We typically do a walk-off type mat that traps the dirt at that level. And there's different viewpoints, whether we typically do one that's like 3/8 thick that you can pick up and roll out, and then you vacuum underneath it. And it catches all the dirt as the kids come in, or a majority of that.
I was just thinking about like when it rains and things
Slippery.
like that, being
Right,
wet,
because
slippery.
it has a type of carpet strip in it. It's more of a,
Is that just in the vestibule, or is
just
that
in the vestibules.
Right. And then in the lobby, I suggest a porcelain tile. Typically what we do in the main entryways.
Do you guys have a preference on the entry, the vestibules, the entry mats?
Now, is that the one you're talking about that's kind of recessed into the floor?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, then that's fine. I think
Bob, is that
But
like La Liberty?
But what we'll do
It's
is,
recessed into the
Yeah,
floor
like,
itself, yeah.
we can bring some products to show you different, because there's, concern about slippage, and these are like a traffic mat at the same time.
Sure.
You don't slip on them, but it also catches the dirt. And then instead of trying to vacuum it all out, you could actually pick it up
Yep.
and clean the area out and then put it back down. It's pretty good during the snow and season there, definitely. Any other questions? These are representative images, some of the schools we've done, but also one that, we toured down in New Bedford. But general classroom, you'll have your whiteboards. If we talked about a little bit with the security, I wanted to show this door right here. This is what we were talking about during one of the security meetings with public safety. They wanted a narrow slot in the door, approximately 3 inches, height of the door, or approximately that, far enough away that you couldn't break the glass and reach in for the door handle. What the other step that we're doing here, and you'll see in an additional slide, is all the glass that is within 7 feet of the floor is going to be a safety glass, but also a laminated glass, not a tempered glass. The difference, what you understand is in a car, your windshield is your laminated glass. You can't get through it very easy. The side windows, you hit them, shatter is tempered. And so there was a time when we used to do tempered on everything. Now we're looking at the laminated safety. It's a level of security that we're going to talk about there. wanted to show this room, this corridor right here. This is more of a high school, but I wanted to show the idea of what the wainscot might be. This is a 5-foot wainscot right here, tile wainscot of 12 by 12. You know, this was a niche in the corridor, you know, and they had specialized lighting in these areas right here, but it was a well-lit corridor all the way down. This was actually VCT here in this one right here. And that was the comment, is we wanted to get away from the waxing and the maintenance. This is actually an extended learning space. This is the 4-foot tile. This is actually the linoleum that I was talking about, the sheet product, and where you can introduce multiple colors into it. There's a good variety of colors there. These had high vision panels, and this looked to be like a stone tile here for that. But in this case, there was discussion that, you know, did we want to introduce glazing glass panels, but he decided not to during the meeting with the teachers. Gym floor, this is actually this is a double-sided stage, and if you look all the way through, there is a cafeteria on the other side. I wanted to show the wood floor, that we would have basketball hoops both sides, and then a main court there. All these basketball hoops would be adjustable. They go down to the 8-foot range, and they go up to the 10-foot range. So they'd be all adjustable that way. These side hoops would go up as the front, these two hoops would go up also. The occupancy is calculated for 1,000 right now. One item that you would want to do if you did have a large assembly is that you'd want to have floor protection here, with the loose chairs.
Not to put on the wood.
Just a roll-out floor protection, and it rolls right back up. It's on carts.
Before seeing any chairs.
I'm sorry? I think you can adjust them down. I'd have to look. We can do that. I can verify. I know they go to 8, and I can verify to do it. Wanted to talk about these are some elevations. This is actually the south elevation. This is the entry. This is more of a presentation, very simple drawing. Talked about what we were going to use on the exterior is that we looked at for the windows, and we'll have 3 different types. We'll have storefront, we'll have curtain wall, and we'll have general windows. Windows are more of a punched opening. Storefront are small areas like this, and then curtain wall tends to be larger areas that go beyond 14 feet. All of them, you assume they're, to the layperson, they're windows.
So does this need to be curtain wall here at the main entrance, or can that be?
I have to look at how we're going to do this frame. I'd like to do it in storefront if I can. It's less expensive, obviously, but, once we get into this, I'm not sure exactly what this was addressed in the cost estimate, but right now it's shown as curtain wall. That's what we show there because it's going beyond the 14 feet limit right there. We have aluminum sunshades
On the south side?
on the south side. Wanted to show that. That's why it's on the south side there. You'll have sunshades here. And on the calf here also. All right. One of the things that Gene was talking about is we had more narrow slotted windows at the grade level into the assembly areas, minimize the views so it wasn't so open, give it a level of security. But also you'll see in the coming slides, we've identified these areas to have school guard glass versus just regular laminated glass. It's bullet resistant. And so that was the philosophy that we had labeled there. You'll see a plan where we show actually in what areas have that. We would have a masonry brick veneer. This is that tan area right here, the hatch right here, and then at the top, looking for a, it's a Trespa, but a phenolic type of resin panel rain screen system. One of the things that was talked about early on is that we have the skylight here, and you can see this mechanical screen right here, and we've actually placed all the rooftop units to the back side of, which are on the back side in plan, right on the back side there. I have a couple of perspectives. I'll show you there.
Is that rain screen, is that just aesthetic, or is that a parapet?
Yeah,
It's not a parapet, no, it's part of the design. That is actually the top of the roof right there.
Right, so then will we need railings up on the roof?
No,
There's no parapet?
there's no, the only place you would need railings, the way they look at it is like if you had an interior courtyard. The way the police department looks at it is you're running across the roof and there's an interior courtyard, they don't want you falling into it. So you would not have to have railings here. No.
And so this is just a trim or an accent
Yes.
at the top to the brick?
Correct.
And so, it's a phenolic material?
Yes. Okay. Anything else?
Keep going.
So keep going on. North elevation, we have similar designs right here where we have the brick veneer, aluminum windows. See that in the phenolic resin band right there. It's a rain screen system. Basically, your water barriers behind it. It's aesthetics out in front of it. We have that right here also at the roof terrace, the phenolic area right there.
That's that railing?
Yes, this railing right here.
Do we want to raise that?
Well, it's up to 42 inches, that's code required.
There's code and then there's safety. Like in New Bedford, it was like 6 feet.
Oh, okay,
I
yeah,
don't know, it's just something to think about.
yeah, that's a good point.
These were a couple SketchUp perspectives, basically at about 6 feet off the finished grade. And we wanted to show that what you're actually seeing there, it's limited. These are mechanical screen enclosures right here. But this is the backside, basically at the southwest corner?
Yes, southeast.
Southeast. And so, we had pushed, we had the mechanical units both sides of the corridor, and we've pushed them back to the north side to limit view on that. Couple perspectives, this is perspectives going into the school. These are just, some renderings, they're study renderings that helps us, what is it actually going to look like with the rooftop units, but also what's, this is the 2-story level, and this is the 3-story level. Right here?
No, in the gym.
Oh, what we were looking to do right here is that this may be a similar to what's inside the stairs, a polished CMU block.
So it's masonry, but it's not brick.
It's sort of an 8x16 or a 12x16 type of coursing. This I wanted to show, these are representative building materials. Here's a skylight or a sun shades that we'd be talking about, something similar to that. The phenolic panels, you can see that it has a bunch of different colors. You have wood grain, you have the primary colors, quite a few different colors in that application that's there. These are a metal panel system. We're not using any of that right now, but I wanted to talk about the brick base. We had metal panels, but it talked about, what we're trying to show you is, you know, the various materials that you'll see on the elevations. One of the things, this was a school, it's in Denham, correct?
Yeah.
This is a product, it's a cementitious stone product that we're looking at that may be a part of where the Trespa or the phenolic type panels are. It's a Nichiha. And it's another type of rain screen system. It has multiple colors and definitely has different scale to it. This is that polished CMU block. This is in Uxbridge. Wanted to talk about that right there. It's a CMU base. What's nice about this block is it's not your typical CMU where you see the white dusting on the outside. We specified this block to have being built with actually a water block type of additive to the CMU. And so it became stronger than the typical CMU that's there. And it's actually performed quite well.
So is that just to break up the massing that you wanted to use?
Yes, yes.
Yep. The other thing you'll see with the sunshades, you can actually see here that on the south face, see how the shadow is down here? You know, so we have, this will be similar to what you have in your cafetorium, which is a big sheet of glass above the base. But with these sunshades here, you actually end up shading, so you don't have direct sun coming in, heating up the space, and you're paying for more air conditioning. It just makes this, everything work. They work really well on south-facing elevations, and that's what your whole front of your building is facing south.
This is one of the areas that talk about security and safety glass and where we saw it would be. When I say safety glass, it's the orange area, and this is what I talked about being laminate safety glass. And then this purple bluish would actually be a school guard. And that's where, this is pretty much the actual police department. They had said that they'd like to see it at all the entrances.
Yeah.
And assembly areas.
Yeah, so this school guard glass is, as Jeff said, it's actually bullet resistant. Like, it's really, you can take a sledgehammer and, like with a car windshield, that'll break. It still has the plastic film, so it's hard to get through. The school guard glass doesn't really do anything, and it's like bullet resistant. This is not in the schematic design estimate. But the public safety people at that meeting recommended that we at least price it out in design development at certain areas, which included all the entrances and included the man trap at and the windows at the administrative suite. So what we're doing is showing where we might just have regular laminate glass, because they also asked for that, where the windows are at grade. And it's not as expensive, and then where school guard glass might go. And like I say, we're gonna price it and then come back to, just see where the whole budget works out, and then come back to you guys for like a final decision.
So what does the laminate glass get you?
It gets you,
over and above what the base?
it gets you intrusion protection, because you can smash the glass, but you can't.
Stays in place.
It stays in place, and you can't walk through. You can't walk through it.
There's no concern that if you needed to smash a window to get out, that you can't do that either, right?
There might be. The fire department kind of doesn't like it for that reason. They were both in the meeting, so I don't know. Anyway, we're going to price it out that way. We can have more discussions about pros and cons. But it really was from a security perspective that we're trying to show where it might be.
Yeah, when we get those prices to come in, maybe we could have the chiefs come in at the same time and have that conversation with them as well again. Because I think that's gonna be, I was at that meeting.
Right.
But I think it's worth the group hearing from the chiefs on how they feel about the products.
So, there was that design contingency, and you may decide this is a good use for it.
Right.
At this point, we have to do our design estimates, reconcile everything, see where we are, and then kind of have a big discussion about a lot of different things. So anyway, we're just trying to define where the estimator should carry it.
Basically, at the
Second floor, we didn't have
we
much.
didn't have much, but we wanted to make sure you understood the note that there would be, anywhere there was glass vision panels into the classrooms or along the path right there, they would be laminated glass versus the tempered safety glass. Intrusion proof.
Everyone's getting sleepy.
I'm sorry.
Questions,
Hey.
comments?
You made it.
One of the things in the last few weeks I had sent you through Shane is meeting minutes. We can keep on going, but I think that it's worth reading. And please generate any questions. There has been some minor revisions to it, but I would like to just talk about door hardware. I think that's one of the classroom items is that we've decided that the doors are going to be locked at all times when they're shut. The door is shut, it'll be locked. We looked at a delayed mechanism or a closer. We decided that they don't want that. They want to be able to shut it immediately. The communication doors, the doors between classrooms, they will not have any locking device. All right, there'll be a passage set. Those are the big topic items of discussion that occurred there.
And that's so you could evacuate, right, without worrying that you're going to come to a door that's locked.
Or to think that the other person on the other side's gonna lock it.
Right.
Right.
Then you're in,
Then you can't get
you're in a barricade situation and someone else gets in.
Because I think there's a program or there'll be a scenario where you're shelter in place versus evacuate.
So can we just go back to that picture of the door? So is that the classroom door we're gonna have?
Yep.
Back to that. So this one up here?
Yes.
So we're gonna have that glass strip, no side light,
Correct.
no transom.
There may be a few transom, but there will be no,
No window on the side.
nothing on the side.
So when that door closes, the teachers in the classroom, they can always exit, or do they have to unlock it with a key from the inside?
Part of what the discussion is, a further discussion, whether it's a key on the inside or a thumb. And so
So that hasn't been decided?
it hasn't been decided, it's
So
just
not
that.
pushing
that
them
needs to be in
into
the
the
DD.
or pushing with
Yeah.
So when we're talking about the hardware, it's not just us saying what it should be. That, this is working with the police department and the district and our hardware consultant. But
And then you just
So I think, so we need to, I think it should start with you, superintendent, and then,
it needs to be a push on the inside of the classroom, because if you're trying to evacuate and the doors are locked at all
So you
times,
just
you're
want
gonna
the
have to
lever-
take your key and open it just to evacuate. I understand the outside should be the lock, but the inside should just be a push button or something, not, or a
just turn the
turn.
handle and go out.
Exactly, not have
so
to
you've
put the
got a-
key
You
in.
got a thumb lock, but when you want to go out, you
You just
pull the
push
lever
it.
down and open.
Correct, because if you need to evacuate, you don't wanna have to make sure, put your key in, unlock it, and then open it and go. You just want, but on the outside, you wanna.
Well, they were
the key
talking
lock.
that it was one way of, if you were able to get in the door, that the door handle was locked. But Dennis, I sort of agree with that. The handle would-
I mean, if you're trying to evacuate and another class comes in to evacuate, you gotta take your key and
Yeah,
unlock the
plus
door
kids
before
are
you can
in and
go.
out all day long.
Right, and then
You're gonna
every
have
kid
to-
who has to, if the door's closed all times, every time a kid has to go to the bathroom, you have to go with your key and unlock it to let them out. That's not gonna work.
So it's going to be like a,
Teachers are just gonna peg their doors open.
it is a storeroom, right?
That's what you're gonna do.
Storeroom function.
Storeroom.
You're not gonna go over there every time a kid has to go to the bathroom and use your key to unlock
It'll
it.
be a storeroom function.
And on the other side from the
It's locked
corridor.
from the outside, but I'm still
You
able
have
to
to
get out
have
from
a
the
key or
inside.
somebody opens it from the inside.
I have to be able to get it from the inside.
I'll save it
Just
for
a
next
little
month.
kid in there, they're not gonna have a key.
No, I have some questions about the windows too, but I'm not asking that right now.
I might have misspoke about that, just
Any other questions, or
No, it's good.
can I make a motion to adjourn?
Well, we're gonna go to the abbreviated report of the communications
But can,
committee.
can we just summarize, so tonight we went through the mechanical, the electrical, I think that's what we plan to sort of progress in that DD set. We looked at the revised layout of the building, and next month, or next meeting, we're gonna come back with that revised space summary that we need to go through, because that's changed from what we agreed to. We looked at the interior finishes, the exterior elevation and finishes, so that's what we propose bringing to the estimators in a month's time or so. That's sort of where we are now. I think when we move into 60% after the estimates, is that when we'll start to sort of see finished boards and see products that we can, touch and feel, and colors and that sort of thing?
Absolutely. Yep.
Same with, the electrical, maybe we'll start to see the light fixtures. We talked about the pendants and
they'll
that
have
sort of
product
thing.
cuts and everything that
We talked
will
about
generate through that.
plumbing fixtures, right, that will all be in 60%, we'll start to actually see those. Right now, we're just carrying a sink, a toilet, a shower. What's the actual product?
Yep.
So that's sort of typical at this level. I'm not sure if anybody wants to see any more, or has any questions on what we've done, but that's what we propose, sort of bringing forward and progressing.
Like I say, we got to get stuff on paper, get it to the estimators, reconcile the estimates, and then see where we are. And then either adjust scope or say, oh, great, and then just go into more design. And when we go to more design, we can talk about what kind of light fixtures and what kind of everything, really. What kind of tile on the wall, et cetera, et cetera.
You're actually talking about the type of tile, the colors, those type things.
All right, thank you.
So abbreviated communications, we are working on updating the website FAQs. We are still waiting for one of the questions to be answered by Mr. Dutton. So we're waiting on that. We will continue to schedule and plan for public meetings to talk about as we go through the process, and that's about it.
That's nice.
Missing anything?
So
The website's updated with the FAQs minus that one question we still have to.
So one thing that did come up last week at the town meeting, is Emily, the senior director?
The new senior director.
Yeah, so she had asked that maybe we go back to the seniors again at some point. And then we had talked about public presentation, so it sounds like I would suggest maybe we wait until we get the DD package. I don't know if, shortly after that, we say this is what we submitted, and we can go through some of this stuff too, talk about elevations and finishes and stuff. We should get that on.
Okay. On the books.
Creep up pretty quick.
Yeah. Okay. We'll schedule that.
That's it?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Public comment? Any public comments? Anybody have anything?
Review the hoops.
All right. Approval of the December 9th meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Next meeting. Oh, when?
2 weeks from now.
27th.
At this very location.
What's that?
At this very location.
Same location. All right. Unless anybody has anything, thank you, everybody. Thanks for the
You're up, Harsh.
detailed presentations.
You, Harsh.
Me?
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, all in favor? Aye.